This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
And this is Mike, and you can find me at I am Mike White on Twitter.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find back episodes at ovpodcast.com, find the blog at obsessiveviewer.com, and you can also like us on Facebook and join the Facebook group at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer. And today on the podcast, we are talking about our 2016 best and worst movies of the year. It's an episode that we're super excited about. We always enjoy having it, doing it. And we have a returning co-host in our midst.
Yeah. I only come back for my favorite episodes.
Oh, that's
like I come back and do a guest spot 3 times a year or whatever on the ones that I like.
You're like Eastmassers at church. They only show up for Christmas and Easter.
Exactly.
I was so prepared to just think like that sounded like such a backhanded compliment.
No, it was jokingly so. I love you guys. But yeah, no, this is always I think is always my favorite episode every year. And I would not miss this episode for the world. Things have changed a bit in my life, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit, but I'm always excited to talk top 10s, and I'm always excited to recap a year.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is always the one that I'm looking forward to each year as well. And before we get into the meat of it, I have a couple news items that I want to bring up. Just some stuff going on that I want to pay special mention to. Recently, Tiny and I were guests on a podcast. We did a guest spot on the podcast Boob Tube Buddies.
Boobs.
Yeah, tubes. Where we talked about the Black Mirror episode, the Waldo moment, with them over there, with Foxman over there. And that was a lot of fun, so check that out. I'll put a link in the show notes to their site and everything. And also, Tiny was a guest on my solo podcast, Anthology, which hasn't been released yet. But yeah, we talked about the time element, and I'll put a link to that site in the show notes, essentially, because it hasn't been edited and released yet. So I just wanted to say that at the top of the episode, and then we can kind of go into it. So how's it going, guys? Tiny, you haven't said anything.
I'm good. I'm really good. Yes.
Good. Are you feeling better? Because you were
much
sick?
Better.
Good.
Very congested the last several recordings.
Yes. The Mike, did you listen to the Rogue One episode?
I did not.
Oh, that's...
I know. I'm the worst.
No, it's fine.
Listen. It's not just that I don't listen to you guys. I basically don't listen to podcasts anymore. Am I supposed to even say that? I'm supposed to lie. Of course I listen to you guys.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I'm really into audiobooks on the way to and from work.
Okay.
And so I've been listening to a lot of books.
Nice.
Well, it's funny you say that because Matt just finished his first novel.
I didn't. At all.
Just kidding.
No, today I finished Carrie Fisher's The Princess Diarist.
Oh,
nice.
Wow.
It came out a couple weeks before she kind of surprisingly, tragically passed. I was actually listening to it on the drive home from Christmas stuff. The day before she died, and so it was kind of I don't mean to make that sound like I have some special coincidental connection or anything like that.
Right.
It's purely coincidental, but it was kind of a weird thing listening to her read the audiobook and then the next day find out that she died.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was rough too. Like we took a week off between Rogue One and this episode to kind of, decompress, enjoy the holidays, and put together our list and stuff. So we haven't really even talked about that, and it's, oh man, that's just that whole thing. Her and Debbie Reynolds.
Yeah.
That's just so
Debbie
terrible.
Reynolds literally dying of heartbreak the next day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right?
It's unbelievable.
Just couldn't go.
Yeah.
Like refusing to bury her daughter and dying literally of heartbreak. Isn't that crazy?
That is.
It is.
It's unbelievably tragic. It's super super sad.
Yeah, and so not like it's kind of gross to like rank the sadness of celebrity deaths, but
right.
You know, like a lot of them were kind of tough, kind of crazy, and I respect Prince and I respect David Bowie and all that stuff, but I mean, I loved Carrie Fisher.
Right.
Listeners to this podcast know how much I love Star Wars, and so that was pretty. It put a weird someone who doesn't take death very seriously. You know, I'm not affected by a lot of stuff. It was a pretty gray day that day when I got the text that she died.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was pretty affected by it too. It was super, not necessarily shocking because I don't know. It was shocking in that, you know, the last report was that she was stable, and I knew, okay, that's not. Yeah. Obviously, it's a pretty big heart attack. It's not, you know, she's not going to. It's not like, oh, she's going to be fine. But I thought, like, okay, well, maybe if she was out of the woods, maybe it would be, you know, she'd make a recovery. But man, that was a shock.
Yeah, it was.
You know, also on a podcast where we talk about movies and things, I think a listener would say, okay, well, this is where they speculate if she's going to be in episode 9, and I know that we all thought of it. I just think it's a little distasteful to talk about that
I definitely
now.
agree.
You know, a little selfish.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So maybe on another podcast we can kind of talk about episode 9. But she did complete filming on episode 8, and I miss her, and I hope her family is doing all right.
Agreed.
Same here. Yep. But let's go ahead and dig into our episode here. There's not really any good transition there.
No.
So yeah, this is the big year in review episode, and it's always one that we're super excited to do. And we kind of have like a format that we're gonna kind of try to adhere to. So first and foremost, I just want to kind of get everyone's thoughts on the year of 2016 as a whole, both personally and in terms of movies, and also kind of throwing this out there. Did you guys see any 2015 movies throughout 2016 that would have changed your top 10 from 2015?
Well, if I could begin.
Absolutely.
Please. I have one actually that's on my list. I guess if you read the show notes, who cares? My number 8 is Room, which I mean, technically I think has a 2015 release, but it wasn't wide until January.
Sure. Yeah, I think Room was like one of my top ones last year, but yeah. And
was it on your list? Okay, I can take it off because I have an easy, like I can shift things around. I'd rather play fair than throw in a curveball.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, if you want to, it's
but because I would say that's one of my favorites that really blew me away.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. You didn't see that until this year?
I mean, I saw it in January.
Gotcha.
I still haven't seen it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Get on that.
I know.
Wait, did I have it on my list from last year? I'm so embarrassed. I'm so unprepared.
Oh, no, it's all good.
On my list.
Yeah, I don't think you did, because I think I listened to that episode, and I don't think you did.
All right. Then Clown is back in at number 10. I'm kidding.
Nice. Yeah, so how was everyone's year? Just on purely personal terms, and then movie terms, and then if you have any other movies to throw out.
Mine was pretty great. I mean, I feel like election years are always hard because elections suck, and half the country is going to be bummed no matter what. So it's always, it feels like an election year is destined to be panned publicly quite a bit. And there were many other things in 2016 that caused it to be a rough year as well. But I had a good year. I got engaged, and I had a lot of good things happen throughout the year. I actually just got a new job,
nice,
which I'll be starting next week. It's really funny because that is we've been doing this podcast for 3 years, 3.5. That is the fourth job I will have since we started the podcast.
That's right.
Because when our first episode we recorded, I was kind of like about to be fired from that job at the time. Then I went back to security for a while. Yeah. Then I went to the trucking company, and now I'm going to a new job. So this will be the fourth place I will have worked since we started the podcast.
Get your shit together, Tiny.
I know. Yeah. But yeah, as far as statistics for watching movies for the year.
Wait, let's go into viewing stats later.
I'm not going to go into my statistics. I'm just going to say it was a bad year.
Gotcha.
Not a lot happened. This is the lowest amount I've ever had. Wow. So, but it was a pretty good year in movies, though. Oh, it was a fun year in movies. So I enjoyed it. Still, it's always fun how much we get to see. You know.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. And Mike, personally, and in movies, how was 2016? I think you already covered a little bit of it. Go
there's a couple things I could say. As far as personally, I know 2016 is will go down in history as one of the worst years as far as the internet is concerned. Yeah. But it has been the best year of my life. Mm-hmm. I mean, I finished school. I have a son now. The Cubs won the World Series. My brother got married. It's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's been a great personal year. At the cost of the amount of movies I watched this year.
Yeah.
Like Tiny, that was pretty low as well. As far as how I felt about the movies this year, I remember last year we were kind of talking about the quality of the movies. I think, Matt, at one point you said that it really didn't feel like a great year for movies. And I kind of disagreed. I remember thinking I had a few favorites. But I think I'm going to be that guy this year and say we'll jump ahead and just say I did not see some of the critically acclaimed ones here at the end. Like none of the Oscar bait movies. I haven't seen La La Land yet. I haven't seen Fences. I haven't seen Manchester by the Sea. So I think a lot of those would make my list. But other than that, nothing. There was no like middle of the year one that just jumped out where I was like, oh, I can't wait to talk about this at the end of the year. I don't think it's been a bad year for movies, but it's been a very middle of the road year, I think.
That's very interesting because okay, so first of all, personally, this movie or this year was a bit of a mixed bag. I mean,
real garbage.
Oh no, I'm talking about in my personal life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Although, there was some real garbage in my personal life.
Yeah, right.
No, but I mean, 2016 was a rough year just in general. And personally speaking, I lost my father, and there was a lot of like personal family issues that came up and everything. And it was just a pretty shit start to 2016. But like, it's funny because I actually was thinking about, I was trying to be more positive and everything, and like, Tiny kind of stole my thunder here, but I got a new job this year, and it's kind of crazy because when we started the podcast, I was a security guard, and like that's the only job that I changed.
Yeah.
Unlike Tiny. No, but it's weird because I mean it's a big change going from a job that I'd been at for 10 years to a new job and something that's completely unrelated to it. So it was a big adjustment, and I'm kind of happy that I was able to do that and actually, did that. I'm happy where I am, so that's good. But so overall, personally, it was not a banner year for Matt Hurt, but I'm hopeful for 2017. But in terms of movies, I honestly think this was a great year. I really do. Maybe not great. I'm gonna walk that back a little bit. I thought it was a really, really good year. And I think part of that is because last year I bought a year's worth of MoviePass, and because of that, I was able to see more movies in theaters than I had in years previous. And we'll get into stats in a bit, but I think that there's some interesting stats for that. But overall, in terms of the amount of movies that I saw, it was pretty low too. Even though I got to see several movies that I wanted to in theaters, overall, just in terms of in terms of time spent watching movies throughout the year, it was considerably lower than years previous. And that's kind of a bummer for me, but also something I didn't really bring up is that I also relaunched my solo podcast. So I've been doing twice as much work and even a little bit more than that throughout the year. So I just haven't had time to really devote to actually watching movies and stuff. So it's been a little bit of a down year in terms of stats, but I think overall in terms of content, the movies this year were pretty strong. So, yep. So let's go ahead and go into our stats. I know you guys are super excited about that.
Embarrassed is the word, I think.
Yeah. Let's see. Mike, new father and new master. Is that what?
My friend Jake, after I graduated, he got me a plaque that says Master White.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is not a title, just if you don't know anything, like, if you get your doctorate, you're a doctor. I am not Master White, but he thought that was funny.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So
your stats. Oh, yeah, just go ahead and, what are your viewing stats for 2016?
Okay, so my total viewings, I didn't do a whole lot of percentages because I'm a little embarrassed.
Sure.
So my total viewings were 147 movies total.
Okay.
And I didn't even account for how much that's down from last year because I don't even want to know. My guess is a lot.
Sure.
Total theater viewings is 52, which is also embarrassingly low, which means I had to skip a couple of weeks. I did have a son. And usually I see like 64, but I didn't, I still see one a week, but the few that I had to skip, like I didn't even make up for those. My total movies watched, the highest amount was October with 27 movies. And in November, I watched 5 movies.
Oh,
That's
man.
my lowest. 5 movies.
Wow. That's, that's not terrible.
No, I like my former shortest month, if I remember correctly, was when I was student teaching. So it was like 2009 or whatever. And that September, I watched 9 movies. And I remember being like, 9 movies? That sucks. Is this my life? And then I beefed it up later on, and then I'm back down to 5 movies in November. I think I really felt in November the like Shocktober hangover, because even with a son and even like finishing up my master's, 27 in a month is a lot. I mean, it's not a lot for us, but I think it's a lot for the casual viewer.
Oh yeah.
And so I watched a lot of Shocktober movies, and I just I think I just felt the hangover.
Honestly, I mean, I don't think I did any Shocktober viewings. I think I saw one horror movie in Shocktober, and that's it.
Oh, really?
I watched Hocus Pocus. That's it.
What's that?
All I watched was Hocus Pocus with my fiance.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know we didn't do a Shocktober wrap up episode, and I was like, that's kind of weird. I did of my 27 in October, 25 of them were Shocktober eligible.
Wow.
Well, the thing with me is like, that's awesome. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah,
but with me, it's like anytime, like now it's like the month of October is like, it's Shocktober in Irvington prep. It's Heartland Film Festival, and it's like it's hard to really commit to that. Like I had a conversation with Fecus when he was on the podcast. I don't know if it was actually on the episode or not, but he mentioned like you could just do Shocktober in September instead. And I was like, I might actually do that.
Yeah.
Like I might actually do like all my horror movie viewings in September, but we'll see.
I mean, I was so excited for Shocktober this year because we finally trained our son to go to sleep at a reasonable time, and so I just watched a movie most nights. That I started in August. I watched The House of the Devil, Lights Out, Lords of Salem, and I just went on all through September. I watched another 7 or 8 Shocktober movies, and then and then killed it in October. I saw a lot of people die this year.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Wow.
Nice. Do you have any other stats?
No.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't.
All right. Tiny, how about you?
Well, Mike, get ready to feel a lot better about yourself. Because if yours are bad, mine are abysmal. Like bottom of the barrel bad. Total viewings, 81.
Oh.
81 movies. That's really bad.
Wow.
16 movies in the theater, which is despicable. Highest for a month was January. I watched 18. And I wish this were a joke. My lowest month was March. I saw one movie.
Oh my god.
And that movie was Batman vs Superman.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
Oh wow.
These statistics could be 3 months from some of my years.
Oh.
Like seriously.
What?
When in 2015, or was it 14 when I watched all those movies? It was 2014
I think it's 14,
when
yeah.
I set my record. This would have been like 3 months. All my total viewings.
Are you okay?
I am. I'm actually really good, but like Mike said, the movie watching part of my life took more than a back burner. It wasn't even on the stove this year.
Jeez.
So it's disappointing and it's a bummer, but I'm just, as a person, really happy right now, so it's hard for me to feel bad about it. But
me too. You know what the really super dorky thing is? I have read hella books this year.
That's good.
Nice.
That's good.
Very good.
I wish I could say that.
Yeah.
But I can't really say much of anything.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, but I can't read. But here's a question for you guys. Okay, I don't know. This could be, I don't know. This isn't inappropriate or anything, but you guys are clearly in very different are very much leading very different lives from when we started this podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm leading a somewhat different life, but still kind of, I haven't made the big life milestone jumps that you guys have had, clearly.
Right.
Is this something that you guys, are you guys is your goal for 2017 to try to adjust, or is it you guys are happy, is movie watching becoming more of a luxury and not like a focus point of your lives?
It's absolutely becoming a luxury in mine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do miss it. Like, it's not that I don't feel good about this. I wish I had watched more, but it is a luxury. It's not a focus anymore. Yeah, and that's unfortunate, but happier than I've ever been.
Sure.
So it's worth it. It's a worthy trade-off.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I
Michael?
think that I would call it just a brief step back. I hope that once my son is old enough to watch movies, we'll watch a lot of movies together.
Totally.
But I know, obviously I have to make activity choice. I mean, we pretty much the day is spent playing with Oscar. Mm-hmm. And then so he goes to bed at 7. It's okay, I have enough time to do one thing tonight.
Gotcha.
And so it's okay, I'll read, or we'll watch TV, or I'll play some video games, or watch a movie. In October, I chose watch a movie, and then in a lot of the other months, just didn't have time.
Sure.
Yeah, this last week, I was off for 7 days in a row. Nice. And it was a staycation. We didn't travel anywhere or anything. It was after Christmas. We didn't really do much for New Year's. In the past, 7 days off, a 7-day staycation would have been
movies.
30 movies probably.
Yeah.
I mean, at least 20 would have been a huge thing. I watched 8, which is
that's still respectable though.
It's respectable for normal people, but seriously, for me, it would have been 20 movies. Sure. Not saying I'm superior. I'm saying I'm abnormal.
I mean, I remember. I think you may have been working at the time too. I don't think this is when you worked at the security company that we worked for, but a different security company. I remember you talking about how you watched the entire Lord of the Rings box set, special features and all.
Every disc. Yeah.
Yeah. Which
I could never do that again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm hoping to improve, and there will be better years than this for movie watching. But I mean, next year, my fiance and I fiance and I are buying a home probably within the first 6 months, and then the second 6 months we're going to be getting married. Right. So it's going to be hard to beat these numbers again next year, I think. But I'm going to do my best, and I foresee kind of how Mike said, when his son gets older, he's going to start watching movies with his son, and then maybe his son will start tracking his movies, and he can be a guest on the podcast. But
totally.
Sure, that'd be awesome.
I know there will come a time where I come to a medium where I can get back to my movie watching passion. So nice. I'm hopeful for the future.
Nice. It was funny because in the pod chat you were talking about how I'm really gonna try to improve those numbers this year, and I'm like, you're getting married this year, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's yeah.
Yep.
Good luck.
I think even more than getting married is buying a house. It's probably going to take up even more of my time than that. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm already basically married.
Right.
Engaged. The wedding's like a couple of weeks worth of stuff, I think. So
I thought for a second you were going to say it's just a formal or it's just a party.
No.
Yeah.
Although she doesn't listen to the podcast, so
that's true.
I can say whatever I want.
Right. Yeah. So,
your stats.
My stats. Yeah. Okay.
Here we go. Make us look bad.
Oh, I don't think I'm going to make you guys look as bad. Well, I mean, so yeah. My total viewings overall was 176, which is pretty low for me. It's really pretty low. I didn't check my averages for all the years I've tracked, but last year I did have 230 total viewings. So this year was a decrease of 23.48% from last year. So it's pretty, in my estimation, it's a pretty big jump down. Overall, so
we're going to take a quick commercial break. Just a reminder, you're listening to The Casual Viewer presents The Casual Viewer podcast.
Oh God.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Overall movies though, so like the amount of titles that I saw in 2016 was 166. So I didn't see
no repeats.
10 repeats. Yep.
Wow.
Oh yeah, and it's worth noting, and I swear to God, it's so funny to me because as someone who spoke so strongly about how much he is not into Star Wars or anything, I think three of those repeat viewings were The Force Awakens. So I saw The Force Awakens a total of 4 times this year.
Nice.
And then one of the repeat viewings was Rogue One because I saw that twice.
Perfect. Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then in terms of, the 166 just total movies, that's down, from 210 last year. So it's a decrease of 20%. And then in terms of first viewings, out of those 176, 133 were first viewings. So I only saw 43 movies that were movies I'd seen before.
See, isn't that bothersome to you? That's a trend that I've seen for the last 5 years. We're so intent on making sure we see everything we need to see, and we see a lot of new movies, and we go to the movies a lot, and we do these lists and stuff, and we try to see new Shocktober movies, but we'll say Shocktober. Every year in Shocktober, I'm like, I need to watch as many movies as I've never seen before, and just my collection of DVDs is just collecting dust.
Mine too.
Oh yeah,
I hate that.
We even talked about that last year on the podcast. We talked about how I think all of us collectively came to the point where we were like, I'm going to try to watch more movies from my DVD collection this year.
Yeah.
And I tried. I watched a decent amount from my collection, but it was still, majority of my movies were first viewings. But it's funny because my first viewings, I had 133, but that's only down from only 138 last year. So that's a decrease of only 3.62%. So in terms of seeing movies for the first time, I'm pretty much on target. It's just the overall amount has been low. And then I tracked a new stat this year. I tracked the movies that I watched specifically for podcasts. So. Yeah, so these are movies that I watched Not necessarily only because we were going to review them on the podcast, but these were movies that I made an effort to see so that we could talk about it on the podcast as a topic or a review. And that amount was 43, which that includes like movies I watched for a certain topic, or movies that I watched for a guest appearance on another podcast, or movies I watched for my bonus reviews on Anthology. So 43 overall is not too bad for me. I wouldn't think. But guys, theater count.
Hey, here we go.
Theater viewings. Okay, so let me start off by just saying that the amount of theaters that I went to was slightly lower, because there were a few theaters I didn't go to this year that I went to in years past. So I only visited 6 different theaters throughout the year, and that's down from 9 last year. Total theater viewings is Tiny. How many movies did you watch overall last year?
81.
Total theater viewings, 83.
You dick.
Oh my God.
Wow.
83 theater viewings. And let me just say, first of all, that this is an increase of 16.9% from last year's 71. And this is due to a couple reasons. One, the vast majority is that I splurged and I bought a year's worth of MoviePass last year, which I'll probably dedicate a little bit of this to talking about MoviePass here in a bit. But so that was a majority of screenings. Plus, I got press passes to Indie Film Fest and Heartland. So, I mean, that basically was all of my movies in theaters. So,
okay, if you don't count those though, and I think I would,
mm-hmm.
but I mean, like, you went to a pedestrian like movie theater. How many of those?
What movies that weren't Film Fest movies?
Yes.
Let me real quick. I didn't get that prepared, but it'll take me 2 seconds to tally it up here. 22 of those 83 screenings were Film Fest screenings.
22 of the 83.
Of the 83.
So
that's what, 61?
Okay.
Wow.
61 wide release
yes.
Theater chain viewings.
Which is beyond respectable. That's like really good.
Yeah.
Just 61 is really good.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's pretty. I'm pleased with myself for it. But I will say that 69 of those. I don't think I did the math right there, but anyway, 69 of those were MoviePass screenings. So, yeah, those were that. 69 were MoviePass, and let me just really quickly just go through MoviePass a little bit, because like I said, I did a year's worth of MoviePass, so that was $400 for one full year, and I had my stats here. So, in going to the theater, 69. Oh, it's a little bit more than that, because I'm counting just overall that 1 year of MoviePass. So December, I think. It was like December 19th to December 19th, 2015 to December 18th, 2016. That's when I had the 1 year's worth of MoviePass. And in that year, in that calendar year, I saw 60 movies with it. And that amounted to a cumulative ticket price of $573.60.
wow.
And the total price for MoviePass for the year was $400.
Nice.
So my total movie theater savings with MoviePass was $173.60.
Jeez.
And
worth it.
Oh yeah, and it's worth noting that I recouped that money. I recouped the $400 in the 8th month of having MoviePass.
Wow.
So yeah, I was very pleased with that, and I wish that I had like set aside the money to actually, do it again. But now I'm just doing month to month, so we'll see how that goes. And I think at tax time I might do the same thing, because damn.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Nice.
and I'm so pleased with MoviePass in general. Like that, it's such a great service. So yeah, but also going back to theater viewings just in general, I've noticed that every single year since we started this podcast, I have improved my theater stats. So 2013, nice. Oh yeah, 2013 I had 33, 14 I had 50, 15 I had 71, and then of course this year I had 83. So definitely a nice climb there.
I wonder if 2016 is going to be the plateau for that, or
that's why I'm bringing it up on this episode because I don't think I'm going to beat 83, but we'll see.
That is a crazy stat. That's like really good.
It's nuts. It's so nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. In terms of the actual like month to month though, like I had a pretty slow year really, as evidenced by my 176 total viewings. My lowest month, also Mike, was November.
Yeah.
And I had nine viewings in November. I only watched 9 movies. And
oh wow.
Oh yeah. And in June, I think June, August, and September, I only had 10 each month.
Wow.
Yeah. But I finished kind of strong. Like my highest months were October with 25 and December with 24. So, not too bad. Not too bad. There's room for improvement, but I'm happy with it. I feel like I got for as small as my total viewings were, I think that since the majority of them, or since a lot of them were movie theater viewings, I count that as kind of a win because I feel like I have a more well-rounded, a more not necessarily confident, but a more like clearer focused top 10 list than I have in years previous, because I didn't have that many movies that I was like, oh man, I wish I could have seen this so I could put it in there. I didn't have many regrets because I feel like I got some pretty good ones in my top 10.
Well,
so,
yeah.
Yep. And so having said that, guys, what are some 2016 movies that you wanted to see but you missed out on?
Well, the 3 I talked about early on, the ones that are Oscar contenders, and I ask me again in 2 months, and I don't think I'll have, I think I'll have those watched.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
Nice.
Yeah, the 3 that Mike mentioned as well: Manchester by the Sea, Fences, and especially La La Land. Because I was really looking forward to La La Land. I really should have found time to squeeze it in.
I really think you're going to love that freaking movie.
I mean, I'm going to see La La Land on Thursday. So
nice.
Okay. Yeah, I have almost no doubt that it would make my top 10. So those are 3 big ones. But then I literally have a giant list of movies like The Nice Guys, Patterson, Moonlight, Jackie, Swiss Army Man, Suicide Squad, Deepwater Horizon, Moana, The Edge of 17, Hail Caesar, Sully, Hacksaw Ridge, Fantastic Beasts, and Where to Find Them. I can keep going. I mean, it's just there's just so many that I didn't see this year that I was genuinely looking forward to. So, yeah, I dropped the ball in that respect.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you can like to piggyback off Mike's idea. You can barely call me an obsessive viewer. Yeah.
Mike, how about you? Or you already did yours.
Yeah. Just the big ones that are at the like throughout the year. I really didn't miss anything that I was just kind of itching to see. It'll be these ones at the end of the year that I'll catch up on. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, and that's always kind of regional too, because I mean we're in Indiana. It's not like we're not in New York or LA, so we didn't really like the big Oscar bait movies. Those are usually the ones that have limited release, and then last week of the year or first week of the new year is when they get a wide release, and that's something that's kind of tough to anticipate. Like Tiny, you mentioned Patterson. I don't even think that's been playing here at all.
Yeah,
yet.
I think we missed it. We might have gotten a week or 2.
Yeah, I don't even know if we had that. Maybe really? Keystone Art, but that's another thing. I didn't go to Keystone Art at all this year.
Oh wow,
it didn't take MoviePass.
Neither did I. So
yeah. But yeah, as for 2016 movies that I wanted to see but missed out on, there are several here too. Moonlight, I've heard really great things about, and I really wanted to see. Yeah. Fences, Hunt for the Wilder People.
Oh yeah.
Hacksaw Ridge. There's a movie with Dev Patel called Lion I really wanted to see.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that one.
Yeah. There's a couple documentaries. Tickled, that I've heard really good things about that I want to see. Weiner, about Anthony Weiner.
Right.
I want to see that too. Jeez. And
oh, weird.
Oh, yeah. And also 13th, The Handmaiden, I've heard good things about. Sing Street, Other People, I didn't get a chance to see. And also Kubo and the Two Strings, I heard really great things about, but I didn't get a chance to see it. So,
all right.
So yeah, so we'll see. Hopefully I'll be able to, catch some of those, at least before the Oscars, for the ones that are going to be in contention for Oscar season, or for the Oscars. So let's just move right along and go to our honorable mentions, because we're getting a little bit long here, and I want to get to the main event here soon. What honorable mentions did you guys have?
I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have 11 honorable mentions.
Wow.
That's too many. I'll cut it down to 5.
Oh, no. Go ahead. Go nuts.
You don't think? Okay. So these are not in order. I think I'm kind of over putting honorable mentions in order, and I'm also over putting the worst movies in order. They're all just bad.
Sure.
So, in chronological order of when I saw them, that's all this is in. Starting in March, honorably 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Oh, nice.
The Jungle Book, which for a while was kind of on my list, and I just saw some better movies. Hush, is that a 2016 or is that a late 2015?
It's 2016.
It's 16, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that might have made my top 10 if I sat down a little more and thought about it. The Nice Guys, which was delayed for a long time, finally came out and was totally worth seeing. I did actually put Clown on my honorable mentions. It's not a great movie, but in terms of just like fun pulpy trash, it was fun to watch. The Shallows I did like. I think it was kind of a little more. It got a little more attention than it deserved, but it was well done. Lights Out I thought was one of the scariest movies of the year. War Dogs is an honorable mention, only for Jonah Hill's performance in that movie. He is just so sleazy. It's War Dogs was like a perfect bookend to The Big Short. Just another movie of like bad people doing bad things that we just don't even know about. The Conjuring 2, which made zillions of dollars. I thought that was well done. I think it did get a little long at the end. I did put Rob Zombie's 31 on here, and I'm not sure that would stay on there for a while, but it was just a fun Shocktober scare. And then I did put Allied here at the end because I thought it was...
interesting.
Yeah, it was really good, and then just kind of just fizzled at the end. So it, if I made a top 20, this would be number 20.
Okay,
gotcha.
Yeah,
I almost saw that, but I missed out on it. I missed out on that and War Dogs. It's just those were kind of movies that it came to a point where I was like, okay, well maybe I'll see a movie, and then those were like the last ones in the theater that I hadn't seen yet, and I was just like, those were times where I was just like, I don't really feel up to it.
Yeah,
so, yeah, me too, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right, for my honorable mentions, for lack of not seeing enough, I only have 2, which is really, really deplorable. So the first one is 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi, which is a Michael Bay movie.
Right.
It's funny, I think even if I had seen 200 movies this year, this would still be on my honorable mentions. Okay. I really liked the movie. I feel like I don't have to, I feel like I need to defend it because it's Michael Bay, but I feel like Michael Bay is starting to, I feel like you can kind of parse out his movies into different categories. You're going to get his Transformers and his crappy movies like that. But I feel like he did like Pain and Gain a couple years ago. I really liked that movie, and I really enjoyed 13 Hours. I thought it was a pretty genuine story, and I just enjoyed it. So I think it's worth seeing. It's not even a guilty pleasure. I just think it's a pretty solid movie. And then my other one is Eye in the Sky, which I talked about in Obsessive Viewer episode 182. 13 Hours I talked about in episode 176. Eye in the Sky, I just think I'm very fascinated by stories that tackle gray areas or moral or ethical gray areas, and this kind of does that. and I thought they strung everything together really well. It's just a very fluid story that I enjoyed a lot, and I enjoyed the performances quite a bit. So those are my 2 honorable mentions.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sweet. I still haven't gotten a chance to see Eye in the Sky. I almost made that like the last movie I saw in 2016, but I played video games instead.
It's a good one.
So as for my honorable mentions, I have 5. These are also, they're in no particular order. First up is Hell or High Water, which I was able to see at Indie Film Fest. So I think that might be part of the reason why it's only an honorable mention, because I saw that back in July and I haven't had a chance to really revisit it. And when I saw it, I thought that it was really, really fantastic. I mean, a really good, like, modern day Western, with some very interesting characters. And I loved the dichotomy between the 2 law enforcement characters and the 2 outlaw characters. I liked the way that those characters, their storylines were portrayed, essentially. But something like by the end of it, like, it's something that didn't really stick with me the rest of the year. Which I'm kind of curious if I go back and revisit it, if I'll think like, how stupid can I be to not have it in my top 10, or if I'll just think like, oh yeah, I mean, it was still pretty good. But yeah, so I really liked it, but it's just an honorable mention. And then the next one is another movie that I saw at Indie Film Fest. It's this documentary called The Invisible Patients that it's not a wide release, or it's this local thing. It's about a home healthcare nurse who in Evansville who the documentary crew chronicle 1 year of her, working in Evansville with three patients essentially. And it was a movie that it's a very personal choice for me because, my dad had passed away earlier this year, and he had, at the end of his life, had in-home health care. And it was just something that I saw this in the theater, and it was just, I mean, I was fighting back tears the whole time, and it was just a really powerful documentary about, kind of a, I would go so far as to say probably unsung kind of part of healthcare in our country. And then next honorable mention was Sully, which I was not expecting to like it as much as I did, and I really wish I would have put down the episode numbers on here. I didn't have time for that, but where we talked about these. But anyway, I was not expecting to like Sully that much, but it was just, I don't know. It was a really interesting look at how one man's perspective of a situation changes when his actions are under such severe scrutiny. That's kind of what I keyed into with it. And I thought that was a really well told story. And also the imagery of the dream sequences that he had of the plane, the alternate scenarios that could have played out were just jaw dropping and very very unsettling.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then last 2 are The Witch, which I watched. I was trying to make it, anyway, The Witch.
No. Shut up. No.
The Witch, which I really loved it, or I really enjoyed it. I haven't revisited it since, but I was just really taken in with the scale of it, or how authentic it was, and how they had such, I mean, this is a movie where the fear, it's not an outright terrifying movie, for me, but the fear is in the actions of the characters and in their reaction to certain situations. And it felt just so authentically fearful and fear-based that I really latched onto it, and I really enjoyed it. And then my last one, this one, honestly, I haven't given it much thought since I've seen it in the theater, and that's something, considering that it is Disney Pixar's Finding Dory. Honestly, putting in honorable mentions, it could potentially just be a courtesy thing for my love of Pixar. Mm-hmm. But having said that, it's a good movie. It's very good. It has some very thought-provoking things to say about having someone in your life who is who has a disability, and raising that person and being around that person. It has some poignant things to say about that, but overall that's probably why I would put it as honorable mention. But in terms of the oeuvre of Pixar movies, I mean, it's no Inside Out, it's no I guess Toy Story 3, or Finding Nemo for that matter, but it was respectable in its own right, and that's why it's a honorable mention. So yeah, should we go ahead to the main event, to the top 10 lists?
Let's talk about it. I can't wait.
All right, sweet. And before we do that, I just wanted to throw out here that I texted frequent guest Robert Feckes for his top 10 list, because I figured, he made a ton of guest appearances this year, and I kind of consider him to be the Paul Rudd to our Friends gang.
Nice.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So anyway, so he hasn't made his top 10 list, but he did say that we can mention his top 3, which I'll just go ahead and just throw them out here. His top 3 were, starting at number 3 was Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Number 2 was Hell or High Water, and number 1 was Arrival. And he also said his worst movie of the year goes to Ninja Turtles: Out of the Shadows.
That's the worst movie of the year? I mean, that is the most forgettable movie of the year, I guess. I don't know. It's whatever.
Well, Feckes is a die-hard fan. He has a Ninja Turtles tattoo. Okay. He's like a purist.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not wrong. That movie was garbage, but yeah. I mean, I wasn't like incited to riot or anything after I saw it. I was just like, oh, that was that. That was
sure. All right, so let's go ahead and go into our top 10 list. We're going to kind of go in a rotation, starting at number 10. We're each going to give our 10 and some brief thoughts on the movie. So we're going to start off with Mike. Why don't you get us kicked off with your number 10 movie of 2016?
So my number 10 is complicated because I did have room on there, and I think someone I'll be cheesy and say, well, I'm going to save number 10 for Manchester by the Sea or La La Land or whatever. Like technically, when I come back to my top 10 of this year, I think I'll redo it. So I think like my closest honorable mention, which for the sake of conversation, I'll call 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Okay, and that'll be your number 10? That'll
be my number 10 for our talk, yeah. And so it was a movie, it's going to sound like I didn't like it. So let me first say that I really did enjoy it, and I saw it twice. And I took my wife to see it when I saw it the second time, and she really liked it a lot. I think the performances were great. I really love that the ending just kind of goes off the rails. I think it was an intense movie. But other than that, I really don't like the Cloverfield marketing thing. That seems cheap to me. And we can talk about that. I think we might have talked about that over the summer, but I don't know. It just seems bothersome to me. The other thing is, for whatever reason, it's just not a movie that over time stuck with me. It's not a movie I kept thinking about. So it is at best a number 10, but still a pretty fun experience.
That's very interesting because I'll talk about it later.
Yeah. Much later.
Considerably later. Interesting. Tiny, what'd you think of 10 Cloverfield Lane? Unless you're going to talk about it later.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you haven't seen it yet?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, man.
Yeah, not good.
Man.
Not good. I'm hoping it hits Netflix.
I mean, I have the Blu-ray. I know you said that your PS3 kind of crap.
It started working the other day.
Did it really?
I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's going on with it.
10 Cloverfield Lane Blu-ray with you.
I will happily do that, so.
Like, get up and grab it right now. Because, damn.
I'll remember it.
Okay.
So you liked it a lot.
I did. I really liked it a lot. Yeah.
It's my number 10.
Sure. And I mean, and it is... And I'll talk about it more in detail here in a bit, but to your point about the marketing and the Cloverfield branding of it, that's something that I really latched onto. It just felt like, it was
they got you.
They did. Oh yeah, gotcha. And like it was one of those things where I was just like, this is such a cool concept, or this is a cool idea to kind of just. I never once, well, going into the movie, I was trying to find, like, is this going to be happening concurrently to the Cloverfield movie? Is this like a separate timeline? Is this the same event and everything? But I mean,
well, the answer is, and I'm sorry, Tiny, spoiler alert, but it doesn't matter. Who gives a shit?
Exactly.
It's not. It doesn't. It's whatever, and that's what bothers me, I think.
And see, that's what doesn't bother me about it. Oddly enough, it's like, because I wasn't focused, like, in the opening scene where you see she's in a car. Like, I saw, like, her parking pass or something was like it expired in 2010 or something. So I'm like, okay, well, or 2016. And I was like, okay, well, clearly it's not in the same thing or whatever. So we're good there. But I just like it as a separate branding idea where it's like, the obvious comparison to be drawn is Twilight Zone. It's an anthology branding thing. It's like saying that, one episode of the Twilight Zone came out, and then the next episode came out, and they don't have anything to do with each other, but
right.
they're thematically linked.
Right, but like that's a television series that intentionally claims to be an anthology series, and in a cinematic world that is in a world where we're complaining about a lack of new ideas in movies, and where movies are competing with the rapidly growing success of television. It seemed to me like a cheap ploy. Like, we're not sure anybody will see this movie unless we tack the word Cloverfield on it.
That's totally fair, and I would almost, like, I'd meet you halfway and kind of agree with you there, but I would say that naming it 10 Cloverfield Lane and using that as the marketing was something that actually benefited the movie greatly in that respect.
The film or the success of the movie?
The hype surrounding it and the success. Because
yes,
you're right. If it had been named The Cellar, I mean, even if it was even presented as a Bad Robot movie, I mean, who's going to go see The Cellar in
nobody, right?
March. Yeah. And it would be different if it was named like Cloverfield 2, The Cellar. But it's 10 Cloverfield Lane. It's related enough that it's just it's like J.J. Abrams said, it's a blood relative.
Yeah. I guess I'm just like, I'm rooting for movies. The same reason I gave Jupiter Ascending an honorable mention last year. It's that movie was garbage. Jupiter Ascending is garbage. But I'm just rooting for movies to continue to make sci-fi movies like that.
Sure.
And it's a bummer to me. Like, it's a loss. It's in the loss column for movies if we have to call it Cloverfield Lane to get people to see it.
That's a good point.
I think that's something that we'll just have to agree to disagree on. Because, I mean, it's really interesting because I do not see it as a detriment at all. And I think that we have very different viewpoints of it. And I think that we're just going to have to just leave it be at that.
It sounds like
I think we're going to do anything, but that's really interesting. Did when you saw it a second time, did it affect, like, is it just the branding of it, the name of it?
Yeah, that's all that bothers me. The movie is fine. The movie is, I would dare say, great, and that's why I saw it twice. I was like, Amanda, you have to see this. However, get the idea of Cloverfield out of your head completely.
Mm-hmm. I think it sounds like the issue is more that the criticism is of viewers that they had to call it 10 Cloverfield Lane to come see it, as opposed to movies themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, the movie's good despite the fact that it had to have a marketing ploy. Not
right.
Yeah. I haven't seen it, so I really can't say much about it.
That's all fair. That's totally fair. So, yep. Tiny, what about your number 10?
My number 10 is the movie 13th, which is a Netflix documentary. I thought I had talked about it on the podcast, but I hadn't.
Nope.
I did not. I made sure I hadn't talked about it on the podcast. 13th is a reference to the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. But the film has the thesis that slavery was just kind of renamed and turned into our prison system, which has grown exponentially over the past several decades in the United States. It's a really fascinating look at the criminal justice system, and the prison system specifically, and I don't necessarily agree with every point they made in the documentary, but it's really, really disturbing information and really wild information. There's a lot of disturbing statistics that they list throughout it, and I'm not trying to make you feel like crap that it's a really depressing thing, but it's also very fascinating, and it's a parallel that I think a lot of people haven't made. So it was a really well done documentary, and I appreciated Netflix. I just appreciate their passion for documentaries, because I share that passion, and I'm glad that they're not only making documentaries but making important ones like this. And this was my favorite documentary that came out in 2016 that I've seen. There's obviously a bunch I haven't seen, but it's a really good movie. And again, I think Mike talked about 2-3 months from now how would our list change. This would probably be an honorable mention, as well as my number 9. But I'm totally comfortable putting it on my top 10 list. It's a good movie.
Nice. I haven't seen it yet. I really tried to, but I didn't get around to it. Mike, have you seen 13th?
No, I have not.
Okay. Yeah, it's directed by is it Ava DuVernay? Who did Selma? DuVernay. Yeah.
Yes.
Who did Selma? Yeah. So and I've heard really great things about it. So I will have to check that out.
Yep.
As for me, my number 10 is so it's worth mentioning that my top 10 list is, I think, did I mention this before when we were recording that probably I think 4 of them were movies that I saw in December.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah. So number 10 is Don't Think Twice. Mike Birbiglia's sophomore effort after Sleepwalk with Me, which Sleepwalk with Me I freaking loved so much. Like I loved that movie. It's one of my favorite movies if I were to pick a list of favorite movies from the last 5 years or so. I thought that was a fantastic directorial debut, and Mike Birbiglia is one of my favorite comics, and I love his work. So I was really looking forward to Don't Think Twice, and when I finally saw it, it's really satisfying to me that Mike Birbiglia is this creative force that is, he's kind of to be reckoned with. He is just magnificent. What he does with Don't Think Twice, it's a movie about an improv comedy group, and it's about how when one member of that group gets a chance or achieves some success, it's about how that group changes and how it changes the group dynamic. And it's something that is so raw and so real, because it's an ensemble cast, and it's some fantastic actors: Gillian Jacobs, Keegan Michael Key, Chris Gethard. I'm spacing on the other people, but they're all phenomenal. And each character has a different kind of point of view and a different thing that's going on with their lives. And it's a different avenue that they want to pursue. And they're at different talent levels too. And it's just about how that shakeup in the group shakes up the group, really. And it's just a really magnificent way to show these creative people at a turning point in their group creative life, if that makes sense. I really took to it, and I really enjoyed it, and it was really good. Did either of you guys get a chance to see it?
No, it wasn't even on my radar.
Yeah, not until I think you put it on your list. Did I think about it? It's on Netflix, right?
It's not. I rented it on Google Play.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. So that's my number 10. And Mike, how about your number 9?
Yeah. So my number 9 was very early on, and I considered not including it on this list because I sound like a downer. So all of the movies after this, I have nothing but good things to say.
Sweet.
So number 9 is Deadpool.
Okay.
Nice.
Which I think is a just fine movie. Mm-hmm. The reason it's on my list is because it's hilarious. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, the Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool is perfect. You couldn't have cast a more perfect person to play Deadpool. He was born to play Deadpool. I love the little in-jokes. You know, I've talked on this podcast before about some of the things I don't like about superhero movies is when they don't include Easter eggs, and it was just filled to the brim with Easter eggs, both Marvel, both Fox, and just movies in general. I loved that. The reason it's so low is because it's really just all right plot wise. It kind of falls victim to a ho-hum villain. I think the plot is ridiculously bare bones. But I think you have to include it on your list because it's so funny.
I can definitely respect that. It didn't make my list, but yeah, it didn't make my list because of the kind of standard comic book plot fare that it offered. But it was definitely memorable and definitely something that I really enjoyed. And I also haven't revisited it since the theater, actually. So it's something that I'll need to kind of revisit and reevaluate.
Yeah. It will be on my list later.
Nice. Nice. Tiny, how about your number 9?
My number 9 is Imperium, which I talked about on episode 185. So you can reference that for my thoughts on that movie. Honestly, I would say 80% of the reason why this movie is on my list is Daniel Radcliffe's performance. I think it's his best work so far. I was really impressed with Daniel Radcliffe, and I totally have a fan boner for that guy. I love the decisions he's making for his career right now, making movies like Imperium and Swiss Army Man and stuff like that. He's not going for the huge blockbusters. He did all that for a decade with Harry Potter. So I just love the decisions he's making and the performances that he's churning out right now. And Imperium just hit me at the right time, and it is absolutely a good movie. I love undercover police stories. Those just like hit all the right notes for me, and I love those kinds of stories. So this is kind of a personal pick in that respect. But also Toni Collette gives a really great performance in this movie too. There's a lot of quality performance and some good writing and some there are some tropes as well, but I think they're done to really good effect. So Imperium's a really good movie. Again, would probably be bumped to an honorable mention if I'd seen more this year. But again, confident. I'm really confident in having it on my top 10. I think it's completely more than just a defendable pick. So that's my number 9.
Nice. I didn't get a chance to see that. I was kind of curious about it though, so definitely gonna check it out at some point. When you said that it's like his best performance to date, I'm almost mad that you mentioned Swiss Army Man, because I was gonna say you clearly haven't seen him as a farting corpse.
I haven't. Yeah.
Which brings me to my number 9, which is Swiss Army Man.
Nice.
Yeah, and this movie is, if you guys have seen the trailer for it,
I've seen the movie.
You've seen the movie? Mm-hmm. Okay. Is it on your list at all? You don't need to say. Oh, interesting. Okay. So this movie is a movie that I saw the trailer for, and I thought that looks weird as hell. I'm very curious about it. So I went ahead and watched it, and it is weird as hell. It is, and it wears that weirdness on its sleeve. It stays weird throughout it. It is a very peculiar movie, and it owns that. It owns that bizarreness that is in its premise. And what I really latched onto about it is that it has these moments that kind of talk about the somewhat profound moments where they talk about human connection and humanity. There's a humanity to this story of this man in the woods with in the wilderness with a corpse that is coming to life. And it's a very interesting dynamic, and there's some very interesting and profound statements that I found throughout it that kind of touched me personally. And the whole movie, I was sitting there thinking, how the hell do you end this movie? Like, how does this movie end? And in that respect, and probably why it's not higher up on my list, they went one avenue with the ending that I won't reveal, that was really interesting and really hooked me. But then it it kind of wasn't as satisfying as I would have hoped it would have been. But by the end of it, I still really appreciated some of the bigger statements it made about human connection and what it means to be human, essentially, and be a person and be a living being. I thought that was really interesting, and just the way that it expressed itself, like the way that it's a farting corpse movie. It's very unique, and I think that it earns that number 9 spot on my list for those reasons. So that's number 9, Swiss Army Man.
I do think leaving it off my honorable mentions was a bit of a mistake, because I feel a lot of the same way you feel about some of its, how it waxes poetic on existence and life and connections with people. And I was doubly excited for the movie because the score was done by 2 of the members of one of my favorite bands, Manchester Orchestra.
That's right.
And so I was really excited for that movie. But I don't do well with weirdness.
Sure.
And it just got too weird. It just got too weird for me. I couldn't follow it at the end. Like you said, kind of some of the avenues it went at the end. I don't feel like it paid off at the end, and so I kind of left it off my list.
I think that it didn't pay off the way that I wanted it to at the end. And like if they would have made some slight changes to the ending, and I'm speaking in very broad terms, but if they had made some slight changes to the ending, honestly, this could have been like a top 5.
Yeah,
for me.
Agree.
But it kind of resolves itself in a kind of, in a way that left me less enthralled by it and more thinking, what the hell did I just watch?
Exactly.
Which is interesting because honestly, like I mentioned those profound moments and talking about what it means to be human and connect with other people and stuff. Like those moments are great. I love them, but I am not going to pretend that it was a very subtle movie in that. I mean, they kind of wear that those profound moments kind of like they're very, very clear on what they're saying. Yeah. For a movie that's very imaginative, it doesn't leave its subtext up to that much imagination.
Right.
But it still has enough to where it landed at number 9 for me. Yep. And let's see, Mike, how about you? Are we at 8?
That'd be number 8. Man, we're just blowing through this. So like I said, I promise from 8 on, I have only good things to say about my top 10. If you're a frequent listener of my visits to the podcast, I'm a big horror movie fan, and I think Blair Witch is perhaps the most misunderstood movie of the year.
Oh, wow.
I loved Blair Witch, and when we saw it in the theaters, I was as scared as the website Bloody Disgusting said that you would be. Mm-hmm. I mean, not really. It's not like I couldn't sleep that night, but I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm really enjoying Lego sequels as they come about. I can't think of one that really just entirely turned me off. And Blair Witch was just another one of those Lego sequels that kind of hit home with me. I think it's a little plotting at the beginning. I mean, it's the plot of the first movie again. But we love the first movie, and so that's okay. And then the last 30 minutes are so trippy and wild and tense. The score and the sound, like the sounds of the crackling trees throughout, I thought were quite affecting. And I've only seen it the one time, so I don't know how well it will fare on repeat viewings. But I thought, once the tension got going, it was really good. And I'm really just shocked how overlooked Blair Witch was. I love the original. I know that the original is somewhat beloved by horror fans and really kind of ignored by by anyone else. It is kind of a boring movie, but I thought that just the name alone would get it a few more viewers. I was a little surprised by its lack of success, but I loved it. It's an easy number 8 for me.
That's really fascinating, because I'm gonna bring up Blair Witch later, but not on this list.
No way, really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was not a fan of it. Really? Yeah, and we can save that for later because this is the best of list yet.
Yeah,
so I'm not going
my
to
top 10. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting choice. I was not expecting that. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to love it, so I'm like giving it points.
Well, I wanted to love it too. I really did.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's really interesting, and I mean that's a very compelling reasoning behind it too. So I mean, interesting. We'll talk about it here in a bit. Tiny, how about your number 8?
My number 8 is Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Which I think, given our review of it, which was episode 198 last month, I think a lot of people might be surprised to see it on my list.
Yeah, you were not crazy about it.
I wasn't. I think I was overly harsh on it because it's Star Wars, and I have such an affinity for the franchise. And I think the fact that you liked it and Tony loved it, I kind of felt like I needed to play the role of the detractor, if you will.
Sure.
So I think maybe just because of that scenario, it sounded like I disliked it more than I actually did, because I liked the movie a lot. I mean, I'm putting it at my number 8. I really loved the movie. And there's so many things to love about it. Obviously, there's tons of nostalgia points there. Obviously, reference the good stuff I had to say about it in that episode. But it did have its negative points for me, and I think it could have been maybe a little bit better. But I still loved it. I still loved revisiting that moment in this franchise's timeline. I still love that a lot, and I'm really impressed that with such a small part of one of the movies, they can create a whole other movie. And that's a really beautiful thing. And I hope that there are tons of examples of that happening with this franchise. I hope there are other, just even a small part of one of the original trilogy, or even the prequels. I'd be willing to see what they do with a small part from those stories and expand it into an entire film. And it was really satisfying seeing all of it, even though you kind of know what's going to happen at the end.
Right.
The journey. The journey makes the destination that much more fun. So, Rogue One was awesome, and I apologize for my for my detractor position during the review of it in episode 198. I did like it a lot.
I do think you'll get your wish. If Rogue One's success is any indication, I think we'll get more Star Wars stories until we die.
Agreed.
Unfortunately, I don't want that to happen. I would love it to end after 9, but
yeah, I think less is more, but we'll see. I'd be fine with a half dozen of them, maybe.
Yeah,
over the next decade or so.
As my only comment to that is, Tiny, there's no need to apologize. If there's any one person on this podcast who needs to apologize for comments about Star Wars, I don't think it's you.
Yeah, that's true.
But no, that's interesting.
Yeah. We mentioned in the review, really quickly, we mentioned what we were just referring to as the scene in that movie, which I'm sure Mike knows what we're talking about. The scene. I was talking about it today with someone, because I had the whole last week off work. I had to work through Christmas and stuff like that. It was terrible. So I hadn't seen a lot of my coworkers in about 2 weeks. And so a lot of them saw it over the holiday, and we were talking about the scene, and it just kind of reignited my enjoyment of the movie, and because that was the best part of it for me. And I may go see it again before it's out of theaters. But, we'll see. I don't feel comfortable putting it too much higher on my list, but it could have maybe been a little bit higher. But I'm really fine with it at number 8.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. Mike, do you have any comments on that, or I have a feeling that we might have to save that.
It's coming up in a little bit.
Nice.
Gotcha. All right, my number 8 is it my turn? Yeah, my number 8 is a movie that I referenced I talked about in OV189, and that is Deepwater Horizon. Mark Wahlberg and Peter Berg movie about the BP oil spill. This movie was something that it was on my radar. I was intrigued by it because I do like Peter Berg when he is good, and the trailers looked like it would be interesting. The possibility that it could have been somewhat of a return to form, because I did not like Lone Survivor that he did before that. I mean, I kind of despised that movie, and I felt like maybe he had lost his way. But with Deepwater Horizon, I was really taken with it. In terms of just visual, I don't want to say spectacle, because that's terrible, because I mean, people died in the real life event and everything, but in terms of sheer visuals for it was one of the most tense and terrifying experiences that I had in the theater. And by the time, like, you see these people working this problem and trying to solve a situation that is completely beyond their control and completely out of their control. And it's kind of inspiring, and it's in times at points it is incredibly moving. Like I remember I almost teared up in the theater while watching it, because it was such a moving story that was depicted in such a harsh way. Like the visuals and the way that that things happen. Like it's not like a PG-13. I assume it was rated R. I don't know if it was PG-13 or not, but it's not like a sugar-coated depiction of this, because it is. I mean, it is brutal. It is heart-stopping, and it's just one of those movies that the things depicted in it kind of stuck with me a little bit. And there's a moment toward the end when involving, and not confrontation, but there's a scene where it's kind of like a Captain Phillips kind of scene, like Tom Hanks' scene at the end of Captain Phillips. It's kind of that similar type of scene where it's a character who's kind of going through a hallway, kind of processing what this character's been through. And it's just the way that was done was just really, really remarkable to me, and I really enjoyed it. So that's why it's number 8. I thought that it was a really strong movie, and something I feel like I think it's a little not forgotten, but maybe a little underappreciated, because I think that there's not a lot of people really talking about it at the anymore right now, and I was really taken with it. So that's my number 8. It's Deepwater Horizon.
Yeah,
nice.
I saw it. And I found it to be pretty pedestrian. I thought
interesting.
I mean, it was well done. I guess it just wasn't special. I don't know. It's not a good. I'm not doing a good job by saying it did exactly what it set out to do, but I feel like that's all it did. That's all it did for me. It was I got exactly what I expected out of it, and Mark Wahlberg was Mark Wahlberg. You know, nice guy in an incredible situation, and I just the movie was over. We said, yeah, that was pretty good, and then we went home. Sure, it
just didn't hook you in, and
it didn't. Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah.
Interesting. What about your number 7 at this point?
Well, talk about a total hook. I can't think of a bad thing to say about number 7, Don't Breathe. I loved Don't Breathe so much. It was one of my new favorite things to say about it was, I paid for the whole seat, but I only needed the edge.
That is adorable.
There is simply not a more tense movie this year. And so while it's not a very thoughtful movie, at times it's kind of borderline grotesque, which I would knock some points off, and the reason it's not higher up. But man, as far as a really tight thriller, I don't think you can beat Don't Breathe. I didn't while I watched the movie.
Nice. I actually brought that up in OV183. And not it's funny because right after us talking about Deepwater Horizon, I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
There were some elements of like I won't say what it is exactly, but there's an element to it kind of toward the end of the movie where it kind of takes a turn that, I mean, the implication of what is happening is like so gross and unsettling that it got under my skin in kind of a good way. The motivation for why that happens is ridiculous, and I couldn't accept the premise of it, but what it was happening was really interesting and unsettling. But I don't know, I don't think I really cared that much about the characters that much.
Okay.
Especially the one obnoxious guy.
Yeah.
I think, like I was like, okay, guy, okay, you stop now.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I thought it was okay. So, but yeah, I respect it being on that high on your list.
Cool.
And I haven't seen it, just like every other movie you guys are mentioning. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
What have you seen?
What's that?
I was trying to transition, then I accidentally cut you off.
Nice.
So what have you seen, and what would be at your number 7?
Yes, one that I did see was Captain America: Civil War. We talked about this in episode 167, which was a little while back. It was just a super fun movie, and I think I harped on I love the dynamic of the conflict amongst the group. I feel like Marvel has done such a great job establishing these characters and establishing the bond between them, and there's turmoil at the beginning, and then they assembled so well, and we've come to love this crew, and to see the rift was really just like potent for me, I guess. And these are just like they've become icons of cinema, and to see them a rift between them is just a really hard thing to watch, kind of, and it was very, very serious and very very, very potent. So I just really loved Civil War for that reason, and the comic relief was just on point, like it always is in that franchise. Just tons of good things to say about Civil War. Check out that episode if you haven't. 167. We talked about it extensively.
We did, and number 7 on my list is Captain America: Civil War.
Nice.
Nice.
It's freaking loved that movie so much. It's one of and we've talked about this before, but I don't really get in the habit of buying Blu-rays that much anymore because anything is really easily accessible. If I want to see a movie that bad, I mean, worst comes to worst, I'll rent it on Google Play. But with Civil War and a couple other movies, I definitely made the point to purchase the Blu-ray, and it holds up so well. I've seen it maybe 3 times so far, and it's such a freaking great ride. It's so much fun. It's like everything that you said, Tiny. It builds upon 8 years worth of character development.
Yeah.
And builds it into a conflict that is just really surprising at points, and really satisfying, because we get both the very emotional conflicts later in the movie, but we also get the kind of the popcorn blockbuster conflict in the middle with probably one of my favorite sequences. I mentioned that it's my favorite sequence of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, probably. And it's one of my favorite sequences I saw in all theater, all year this year in 2016. And that's the airport scene, because it's phenomenal. I loved Captain America: Civil War, and it's something that I mean, this is a movie that is immensely watchable, and something that I don't foresee myself getting sick of anytime soon. Even though I still think that the very, very large print location cards throughout the movie were pretty excessive. But that's like my one complaint about Civil War.
Didn't they just add it to Netflix like in the last month?
They did, yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't seen it since the theater, so I'm going to watch it again on Netflix probably in the next month or so. So yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it again.
Nice. And Mike, do you have any comments on that, or do you want to go ahead and go to your number
I will
6?
save some of my thoughts on Civil War.
Gotcha.
If I could.
Cool.
Sure.
But my number 6 is a movie we already talked about, and that is Rogue One.
Nice.
And I think the right question to ask, or I think the question at least I've been talking to with or asking with some of my friends is, do you like it more than Force Awakens? And I think ultimately I came down on no. Force Awakens just kind of has already iconic characters, and that's what I like about Star Wars in the first place. But what a lot of people say about Rogue One is it is the Star Wars movie for like people that aren't really fans of Star Wars. And two of my good friends who are not really big Star Wars fans have said, I think that's my favorite Star Wars movie. And I'm fine with that because it's a really, really great movie. I also think I dangerously underestimated it. It was not like I didn't buy my tickets weeks early. It wasn't like it kept me up at night thinking about this movie like Force Awakens did. I was just like, yeah, we'll see Force Awakens, or we'll see Rogue One on Thursday. We'll see what happens. And I was just so stunned by how good it was. I think I did say this in my Pine Tree. It's not higher on the list because it is one of the side stories and ultimately I think unnecessary, but, oh my gosh, I think it was way better than we deserved.
Nice.
That's totally fair and totally interesting. Spoiler alert for the rest of my list. This is the second year we've had a Star Wars movie and the second year in a row that it hasn't made my top 10 list.
Wow.
And I mean, that's also, these movies are just kind of, as much as I've rewatched The Force Awakens and as much as I would like to be a part of that fandom, it's just not something that's ever going to hook me the way it hooks you guys. That's just the way it is. But I do think that I did still have some slight issues with it, but it was, like Mike, you mentioned that it is kind of the Star Wars movie for the non-Star Wars fan or not diehard Star Wars fan. And it came close to that for me. It really did. And I still think it is one of the most just visually, if not the most visually like beautiful Star Wars movie. It's definitely up there. Just there's something to be said about the way that it depicts that original trilogy era with, modern filmmaking techniques. That it's clean and gritty at the same time. It's really a wonder to behold in terms of visuals, but some of the story elements I just didn't, or characters really, I couldn't really latch onto as much as I would have liked to. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's a good number 6. Tiny, how about yours?
My number 6 is the movie Hell or High Water, which I have not talked about yet. I just saw it in the past couple of weeks. This is kind of a personal pick for me because I find West Texas just inexhaustibly fascinating. I think it's just the fact that it is impossible to make West Texas glamorous at all. It cannot be anything other than gritty and like raw and salt of the earth and just very on the surface, not much subtext to any story that could ever happen in West Texas. Because it's the opposite of urban density. It's just the polar opposite of that, and I just find it really fascinating. I love the people that are from there. I find them to be really fascinating, and the lifestyle that you kind of have to have out there. It's very survivalist, it seems to me. And Hell or High Water really tapped into that. I think you could almost put West Texas in its own kind of genre, like its own kind of subgenre. I'm thinking of like No Country for Old Men, which also takes place in West Texas. It's just a fascinating place, and Texans have their fun colloquialisms and sayings that are present in this movie. I love the setting and the people that live in that setting, and so it really spoke to me on that level. But I think more than that, it's definitely in the Western genre. It's got that Western feel to it. The outlaws and the law enforcement officer dynamic to it that Matt mentioned, and I absolutely love the cast. Jeff Bridges he's Jeff Bridges. I mean, he's a character all on his own. And then I've been a huge Ben Foster fan for a long time, and anytime I hear that he's in a movie, I get excited. And this was another example of that. And he was just phenomenal in this again. He was awesome. And Chris Pine, who I like a lot as well. I'm excited when he's in a movie as well. He's had some bomb crappy stuff. But he can be so great, I think, when he's right with the right cast, with the right script, because he managed to shine just as much as Ben Foster did in this movie. And they're two drastically different characters. I loved every minute of this movie, and I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. It's really good. I may add it to my Blu-ray collection.
Oh,
which,
nice.
Yeah, I just love the setting, and it just speaks to me on a visual level. Like Matt said, we've talked about before, we don't buy as much Blu-rays and DVDs as we used to. So that kind of says something. Even some of the movies I'm going to mention that are higher on the list, I won't add to my Blu-ray, but this one, I think I will. So it's just a really great movie, and I loved it.
Nice, very nice. I need to revisit that for sure. Mike, I forget. Did you get a chance to see that at all?
I did. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit.
Nice.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that. Maybe I was more forgiving to movies this year.
Sure.
You kind of talked about how it was a Western, and one of the terms that I heard kind of thrown about it was a neo-Western, and I liked that a lot.
That's good.
I like that a lot too. Yeah. Nice. My number 6 is a movie that I brought up in OV196. It is Moana.
Nice.
And this is a movie that, I heaped praise upon it in OV196, but it's stayed with me since then. It is such a refreshing animated movie. It has this, what I really liked about it is it has this princess character, essentially. It takes the princess template of animated movies, Disney princess movies, essentially, and it updates it to 2016. It has this very self-assertive, very intelligent main character that every time she's in peril, she gets herself out of peril, and it is thrilling and really satisfying to see it. She's not a damsel. No one's rescuing her. And the set pieces for the thrilling aspects of it are just that. They're thrilling. I was right there with her. I was right there with the characters and right there with the movie. I was very fearful for the safety of the characters, and the music in it. I'm still in, like, I will have songs from this movie just pop up in my head just randomly throughout the day. I probably thought of music from the Moana soundtrack probably 3 times today while working, just randomly without provocation. And it's a movie that I had so much fun with it. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, is phenomenal in it. I think that he was perfect in that role. He plays this cocky demigod, and it's such a great dynamic in the movie. And I really appreciated it and really enjoyed it. So that's my number 6. It's Moana. Yep.
That's one of those that I just had no interest in. It's
funny because I really didn't either, but I kind of saw it on a whim after hearing some good things, and it kind of blew me away.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet it's one of those ones that I'll see and just adore, but I mean, animated movies really don't speak to me in the first place.
Sure.
And so I don't know. I would have to see it on a whim or be forced to see it, I suppose.
It'd be really interesting to see how you feel about animated movies in like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I know.
You start taking Oscars
about it, to be honest with you.
Nice. So that's Moana. And Mike, how about your number 5?
My number 5 is a movie I thought you guys were going to talk about. You might be talking about it in a little bit. Man, I guess the theme here is horror, isn't it? Green Room is number 5.
Nice.
Another death that I guess affected me enough to speak of was Anton Yelchin. I was pretty upset by that, and so I hadn't seen Green Room yet, and it was on my list all year up to that point, and I finally checked it out, and I was just blown away by a lot like Don't Breathe, blown away by the tension. I'm a punk musician myself, so the whole punk scene kind of spoke to me. Now I never played in a Nazi bar of psychos or anything like that by any means. But I mean I remember the feeling of playing in a sketchy venue and just some of the stuff that they have to do it was really a treat of a movie.
Nice. I loved that movie too, and I'll talk about it later.
As will I.
Nice. Tiny, how about your number 5?
Top 5, kicking off with Deadpool, which we talked about in episode 163. As Mike said, the hilarity and the perfect casting of Ryan Reynolds makes that movie, and it does more than make it a good movie. It makes it a great movie, and I just the character is just so perfect that he can be in a movie that has a pretty standard plot and a so-so villain, like Mike said, which I agree with. But it can absolutely stand out, and it can be a February darling that had no business making $200 million, and I think it made that money because of word of mouth, and people just heard and talked to everybody about how great it is, and I think it had a good marketing strategy with kind of that leaked test footage. If I don't know if that was intentional on the part of the studio, but it was pretty brilliant because it worked out really well for everybody. It worked out well for the studio because they made a crap ton of money, and all of us, viewers and fans, because it was a great movie. So, check out episode 163 for our thoughts on that. We all loved it, and again, this would probably stay in my top 5. I think even if I had seen 200 movies this year, I loved Deadpool. Very nice.
Let's see. So my number 5 is 10 Cloverfield Lane. And this is a movie that, we've touched on it a little bit so far, so I won't dwell on it too much, but, I was just really, really into this movie. I talked about it in OV156. I think I did kind of a disservice to it. I think I may have also brought it up in OV158 now that I think about it, but in OV156 I kind of talked about it as a shitty theater experience because I had this old couple that were sitting directly behind me talking throughout the entire movie. It was so bad that I had to leave, or I had to move seats. But anyway, 10 Cloverfield Lane it came out of nowhere. I love that there is a movie on my list that I can essentially, it's part of a brand or a recognizable name. And if I were to look at my top 10 list this time last year, if I were to time travel and hand myself 1 year ago a list of my top 10 movies, I would look and think, what what the hell is 10 Cloverfield Lane? Like, I love the marketing aspect of it and how it kind of came out of nowhere and it was kind of a surprise. But
that's a fun game because I'm looking at my list and like none of it is all that surprising. I'm like, okay, I got 5 horror movies on there. Oh, there's a couple of superhero movies. Oh, Star Wars. Oh, a couple of sci-fi. Yeah, no surprise.
Sure. Yeah, and also, I mean, if I were to go back and be like, hey, Matt, you're gonna have a Disney animated movie on your in the as a number 6, and the Pixar movie that's a sequel to one of your most beloved Pixar movies is gonna barely make your honorable mentions. That would be kind of a trip. But 10 Cloverfield Lane is just it's phenomenal. I love this self-contained or this very contained story of these characters in this confined space, and John Goodman is just so freaking amazing. I referenced when I talked about Captain America: Civil War, I referenced the airport scene. Maybe a close contender to being a better scene for me is the scene in 10 Cloverfield Lane when they're playing, I don't know if it's charades. I don't know what game they're playing, but they're playing a game, and it's just this amazing study of tone. Because it's so drenched in humor and fear and terror that it's such an interesting way to juggle so many emotions. And it's, cause in the scene, John Goodman is, he's saying something that is making the other 2 characters think he's saying something else, but he is completely in a different headspace than what they're assuming he's in. And it's just this
that's
amazing. It's so good. It's so great. And the whole movie for me was just really, really phenomenal.
God, I need to see that this
I know, right? But yeah, so that's my number 5. It's 10 Cloverfield Lane. I've seen it a few times, this year, and I mean, I'm really, really excited about it. And Tiny is getting up and he is grabbing the Blu-ray so that he doesn't.
I'm putting it in my bag right now, literally.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let's see, Mike. How about your number 4?
Yeah, sure. We're getting into a place where I think we're talking about movies we already talked about. It's easily Hell or High Water, and nice. For all the same reasons Tiny put it on his list, I'm gonna put it even higher on my list. I loved being in that world, which is kind of funny because I love being in the galaxy far, far away. You would think Rogue One would be up there, but man, the painting that is just created by the cinematography in Hell or High Water, it's just like, it makes my mouth dry thinking about it. And the characters are so low and gritty, and I just loved it so much.
Nice.
Yeah, I really need to revisit that. I loved it for what it was. I loved that it was the antagonist of the movie is the bank. It's a financial institution, and it's kind of seems a little bit it's a little bit reflective of the world we're in. It's an interesting 2016 movie. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And it's something I really need to revisit it. So yeah. So that's number 4. Tiny, how about your number 4?
My number 4 is Snowden, which we talked about in episode 185. We did a full review of it. I love the my favorite part about it is the characterization of Edward Snowden and how he's painted somewhat ambiguously, but I think ultimately kind of championed, and his efforts that he went through. His story is kind of championed and represented as a good thing, but I feel like there's some ambiguity to it that I think was a well done and a very good choice for the character. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, one of my top 5 favorite actors right now, without question. So there's a little bit of bias there, but I think that is absolutely defensible. And I've said so many times my hit or miss feelings with Oliver Stone. He's up and down. I do consider him a good filmmaker, without question. But he drops some bombs pretty regularly. So reference episode 185 for a review of Snowden. Lots of good things to say about it. I think it's probably one of Oliver Stone's best. And I just think this event, I think it's very important now, obviously, but I think the importance of what Edward Snowden did will play out in the decades to come, and I think it will be historically viewed as a really important moment in not just American history, but maybe even the history of society in general, and how we govern ourselves. I think it will be a very important event, and I think it was captured really well by Oliver Stone and everyone involved in the movie.
Nice. Yeah, that didn't make any of my lists, but if I had more honorable mentions, it probably would have landed somewhere there.
Gotcha.
I did have some problems with it, but that's a respectable pick.
Did you see that one, Mike?
No, I did not. Okay. I guess that was one that I wanted to see, but I did not.
Gotcha. Okay. Just curious.
Nice. My number 4, and I won't spend that much time on it because we've already kind of talked about it. Green Room.
Nice.
Jeremy Saulnier's follow-up to Blue Ruin. We talked about it in OV198. And man, I freaking loved that movie so much. It's the tone of it, like it's thrilling, it's terrifying. There's images in this movie that are going to stick with me. It's I got up
pretty gruesome.
So gruesome.
Brutal.
Oh yeah.
Gruesome. I can't,
yeah.
I was shocked. I was shocked.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And, it's really fantastic. It's like I actually woke up early on a Sunday and I drove to a theater that is kind of out of my way, just to see, because that's the only theater that was playing in. And I was so floored by it. I was very taken with it. And, we talked about it in 168. I was supposed to be on, or I did a guest spot on, the Film Schlubs podcast, but I don't think that episode actually ever got posted. But, still, it's such a great movie. I am so interested to see what happens with Jeremy Saulnier's career going forward, because that guy is just fantastic. He's amazing. And Green Room was fantastic, and I loved it. And I really miss Anton Yelchin. I mean, that
yeah.
Such a star on the rise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So sad.
Absolutely.
So sad.
So Mike, why don't you bring us into your number 3?
Well, if we could talk a movie to death, my number 3 is Civil War, Captain America.
Nice.
I loved Winter Soldier, and I still think Winter Soldier is a better movie. Winter Soldier was my movie of the year it came out, and Civil War clearly is number 3. So I don't want to nitpick a number 3 movie and figure out why it's only number 3, but it's better. It was better than either of the Avengers movies, I think. It's interesting to see Civil War stack up against say Age of Ultron, and just see how, even Age of Ultron that does it well, to see Civil War do it even better. Do it right. I hesitate to say perfect, but do it almost perfectly. I think by now everybody has seen it, so if you don't want to be spoiled, stop listening for a couple seconds. But the scene where Peter Parker comes in, I am a diehard Spider-Man fan, and so to see him in the Marvel Universe just floored me. And some of his action scenes were, the airport hangar scene is just one of my favorite scenes of the year as well. And just such a thrilling, fun comic book experience.
Nice.
Well said.
Yep, I agree completely. Yep. So Tiny, your number 3.
My number 3 is a movie we have not talked about yet. It is Other People. Right off the bat, I will say if Jesse Plemons...
Oh, crap.
What?
Okay. When I was making my list... I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're okay.
When I was making my list, and I started with 20, and then I cut it down to 10, and I was trying to figure out which ones to put in. And I deleted the ones that were in the top 10 from my list of the remaining ones. And then when we talked about Room, and I said, well, I better cut Room out, I accidentally had already deleted Other People. Other People should be my number 10.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cloverfield Lane. I take it out. I take it out, and in fact, I'd move Other People up to number 9. It was so good.
Wow.
So I'll let you tell us why. But yeah,
Nice.
so screw that. If you could on the show notes, Matt, put number 10 as Cloverfield Lane and just a line through it.
Sure.
And make an amendment that Other People is my number 10.
Gotcha.
Fair enough. Yeah, so if Jesse Plemons and Molly Shannon do not get Oscar nominations, I will be hugely disappointed in the Academy, which is nothing new, but that they were both just phenomenal. Some of my favorite performances of the entire year, without question. The story, I think a lot of people have no idea what this movie is. Mm-hmm. It was barely in theaters. I don't think a lot of people saw it, but it's about a younger guy who moves back home when his mother is diagnosed with cancer to help his family through her sickness and her illness. So it's a very simple premise, but through incredible writing and just really grounded characters, it is a exceptional film. It's also a dark comedy, and the opening scene of the movie is one of the best opening scenes I've ever seen of any movie ever.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
It is epic. I was cry laughing. Tears were coming down my face from laughing so hard.
Oh yeah.
The opening scene is so
before
funny.
you said the cry laughing, and you're like the opening scene, and I'm thinking of like before it gets funny, and I'm like, oh my god, yeah, that was so good. And then you're like, and I die laughing, and I was like, wait, what the hell?
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. It's such it's so emotionally gripping. There's moments where you're just the raw emotion is dripping off these characters, and you're bawling your eyes out, and then you'll start laughing your ass off because it'll just switch at the drop of a hat because they're such funny people and such rounded characters in the movie. It's so genuine, and it's such a great look at like a 21st century family, the family dynamic and dealing with an illness and all the drama surrounding that. And finding comedy in such a desperate, horrible situation. It's really well done. The writing is off the charts, and it's just a really great movie. I might add this to my DVD collection. We'll see. I think it's absolutely worth adding to a collection. It's a really great movie.
Yeah, we talk about movies we would add to our DVD collection. It's one I almost can't bear to add.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right, and I almost feel like I want to recommend it to just everybody, but I'm also like, oh, have they, you know what I mean? Like, have they gone through this? I better not, because it's devastating.
It will crush you. Yeah.
That, I haven't seen it yet, and I'm kind of afraid to see it.
It's on Netflix, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Just judging from the subject matter, I'm kind of nervous to see it, but I'm very excited to see it.
Right. Yeah, I can understand that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's pretty devastating.
I think even this would be a top 5 still, even with, again, having seen 200 movies this year. I think this would still be in my top 5.
Nice.
Yeah.
My number 3 is Arrival.
Nice.
Denis Villeneuve's sci-fi movie, alien invasion movie that we reviewed in episode 193 of the podcast.
Was I on that in my potpourri, in my pine tree?
You were not. You were not, although it's funny because probably, honestly, 15 minutes after we finished recording is when you called me out after the theater, and we had a conversation about it when you were driving home.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I called you. I didn't record a thing. That's right.
And then like as we were talking, I didn't say this, but as we were talking, I was like, I should be fucking recording this because it's a really good conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, Arrival was everything I look for in a science fiction movie. It is thought provoking. It is really interesting. It's very it takes kind of a broad premise of this aliens, first contact with aliens. Aliens have arrived. How does humanity react to it, and it takes it to places that are not expected, that I didn't expect it to go. And there are just visually just stunning moments in this movie that I'm thinking in particular, like just the scene of them entering into the shell that they call it, entering into the ship, is like just the way that that's filmed is just so striking and so beautiful. And where the movie goes, it ends up telling this really profound story. From the opening scene, like I was like, I'm gonna cry during this movie, and it leads to places that I was not expecting it to go, and that I can't talk about without spoiling it. So it was a gut punch for me, and it was just a movie that I really was satisfied with, and really can't wait to buy it on Blu-ray. Very, very good movie, and yeah, that's my number 3.
Nice.
Arrival. Yeah.
Well, gosh, Matt, I'll talk about that later.
Nice. Very nice.
We're running out of movies here.
Right.
Yeah.
So how about your number 2, Mike?
My number 2 is, I think it was one of your honorable mentions. It's The Witch.
Oh, nice.
And
cool.
It was number 1 until my number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sucked into the era of The Witch so hard. That movie stuck with me so much. It's similar in tone or in presentation to Blair Witch, in that there's not a whole lot of scary in your face moments at all, really. I think there are almost none. But the tone is horrific, and really the way it plays with religious devotion, and the nightmare is being a young woman in the 1400s, really, 1500s. And so, or was it 1600s? I don't know. You guys, I'm not good at history. I don't know. It's a long time ago.
You don't have your master's in history, Mike.
Yeah, right. And so I loved the era accurate dialogue. I thought that was fantastic. And I watched it again in Shocktober, and it's a movie that had I watched more movies from my collection, it's a movie I'd go back to over and over again. It's a movie also where I think if I could tone it down, I would find a way to watch it in my English classes. It's a movie I just want to feel and talk about, and it's a movie that I would, you could call a piece of literature, and I loved it.
I really regret not seeing that one. I thought it looked awesome. I really did. It should have been in my missed movies.
Yeah. It's on Amazon Prime right now.
That's good.
Yep. Nice. That's awesome. Tiny, how about your number 2?
My number 2 is Arrival, which Matt just mentioned, and we talked about in episode 193. The movie just has that feel and the dynamic of a tentpole sci-fi story, like something that you would mention amongst the greatest sci-fi stories ever told, like Dune and Star Wars and other sci-fi movies that you would put in the pantheon of sci-fi movies. I think Arrival has that potential. I've only seen it the one time, and I adored it, and we talked about it extensively in episode 193. So reference that. But it's just one of those movies that I think people are going to talk about for a long time, and it's going to be referenced. It's going to be referenced in other sci-fi movies, and it's just really, really great, and it does what sci-fi should do. It's an awesome movie.
Very nice. So let's see. It's down to me. My number 2.
Yep.
Okay, so my number 2 is honestly, like, I picked my first 2, my number 1 and my number 2, and in that order, and for very specific reasons. So my number 2 is Manchester by the Sea, and I picked it as number 2. This is a more personal choice for me, because it's a movie that deals with grief, and that's something that I've gone through this year, and it's something that's stuck with me, obviously. And Manchester by the Sea is about Casey Affleck's brother dies, and he comes back home to the town to care for his brother's son, a teenage son. And this movie is so, I mean, it's kind of hard to watch, because it is a gut punch after gut punch after gut punch. And it is something that is really spectacular in the way that it deals with depicting grief of characters. And it has a very human story at the center of it, of these characters. It's not just these characters dealing with the loss of a central figure in their life. It's about them dealing with their lives. And there is an element to the story that is slowly divulged to us throughout the movie, that when the movie kind of reaches a point where it kind of lays all the cards on the table, it's like, it's a transformative kind of thing. It's almost revelatory in the way it depicts its drama. I mean, I was so in tune with what this movie was doing, and so in tune with the performances. I will say that Michelle Williams is in this movie, and she's a little bit underused, but when she's on screen, and there's a scene with her and Casey Affleck that is unbelievable. Like, it is one of my favorite scenes of the entire year. It is just so powerful and so moving and so heartbreaking. And, I mean, and that's the whole movie. Like, the whole movie is that. And it has these different characters dealing with different situations. And it's this dichotomy at the center of it is the story between Casey Affleck's character and his nephew, who, they're both at different, the way that they learn from each other is really spectacular. And there are moments that are just, it's amazing. It's a revelation. I freaking loved Manchester by the Sea. It touched me very deeply, and it's a movie that I love so much. It is a fantastic movie, and I highly recommend people checking it out. And that is why it is my number 2.
Awesome. I want to see that really bad.
Oh, it's so good.
Love Casey Affleck.
Me too. Yep.
Nice.
And that is my number 2. And we're here, guys. We're here to our number 1s.
Our favorite movie of the year. And so I'm kind of echo something we've said throughout this podcast. I have this strong feeling that Manchester by the Sea will be up higher, and that La La Land might be my number 1 by the end of the year. And I don't know if that means something about Arrival, or that means something about the Witch that that those aren't locks. I mean, the last couple of years, I feel like my number 1 is just a lock. And so while my number 1, which is Arrival, is a near lock and just really blew me away. And like, as Matt alluded to, we had a conversation on the phone afterwards, which I don't do often, but I just had to call Matt after I saw that thing. But I do think it's a year where the best movies kind of came out late, and I will have more to say when those come out. But as far as the movies I saw in 2016, Arrival was a pretty easy number 1 to end on. Kind of a lot of what you said before. I'm such a sucker for time bending ideas movies, and I think it's a movie where if you think too hard about it, or you get too into it, you can kind of just go in circles. And it's the kind of movie where, like my students will complain about, you can think a movie bad, or think a story bad, where if you think about it too much, it just kind of unravels. And I think if you do, you can get to a point with Arrival where it's just not worth it anymore. But there is a real sweet spot of a message that Arrival is trying to convey that has really kept me thinking, and it's a kind of movie I can't wait to continue to show people. A lot of what I do now when I watch movies is like, okay, when can I show my son this movie, or excuse me, or when will my son appreciate this movie? And I look at the list and like, so Civil War, he'll want to see Civil War in like 5 years. And Arrival is one we'll have to wait, like maybe till he's in high school. But I really can't wait to talk to him about a movie like Arrival. Tiny, I think you said something about how you could see it in the pantheon of like the great sci-fi movies, and I'm totally with you there. I hope Arrival gets some recognition at the end of the year. Otherwise, I think it'll go fairly forgotten as the years go by. But I think it shouldn't be missed.
Well said.
Nice. Very well said. Very cool. Tiny, how about your number one?
My number one has been mentioned by both of you already. It is Green Room. Which I think when I talked about it in episode 187, I said it will. I'm pretty sure I told you it would be in my top 10. I think it was my number one movie of the year at the time, and nothing could knock it from the throne for me. I talked about how I had a physical reaction to the movie, which is no other movie did that to me this year, and sometimes that happens when I talked about 12 Years a Slave. I had a physical reaction to that. It just hit me in so many different ways. You have to like feel Green Room. I mean, there's this visceral appeal to it, and there's the visual coupled with the audio and the sound causes you to feel what you're watching. That's what it did to me. When someone gets their arm broken, you watch it and you hear it, and my arm started to hurt. Like, that's the kind of movie this is. That's how well it was captured. And Jeremy Saulnier has a ridiculous talent for replicating that kind of feeling. I had a similar reaction to Blue Ruin. And I purchased his first feature-length film, Murder Party, on DVD after watching Green Room. I know nothing about it. I was like, I'm buying it. I don't care. Nice. I haven't watched it yet. I was going to report back to you guys. I haven't watched it yet. Hopefully, again, I'll try to say that again, that I'll report back to you guys with my thoughts on that movie. But Green Room, I think if I see La La Land and Manchester by the Sea and Fences and Moonlight, some of those other movies, I'd be a little bit surprised if it toppled Green Room for my number one.
Interesting.
So maybe in our 2017 year in review, when we talk about this year and addendums we might make, I still think Green Room will be my number one. Nice. I can't wait to see it again. It was so great. And Jeremy Saulnier is also at the throne right now of the filmmaker I'm most interested in watching what he's doing next. So Green Room is fantastic. Go see it. Listen to what I said about it in episode 187. Awesome movie.
Green Room cannot be higher than number 5 because of Imogen Poot's hair in that movie. I can't stand that, like, the straight bang but like short down the sides haircut. It's not good. It's not
good.
Mike.
Totally reasonable.
Green Room, not a top 5 because of a haircut.
Right.
I'm a hair guy, man. What can I say?
Well, fair enough. Maddie.
Yes. So my number one. I mentioned that the number one and number 2 were kind of personal picks for me. Number 1 is a movie that I know both of you haven't seen yet. So it's going to be kind of not that tricky, but it's La La Land. And the reason that I put it at number 1 is not only because it's a beautiful movie. I mean, it is top to bottom just beautiful. I mentioned when I mentioned Moana that the music pops up in my head every now and then, or it popped up in my head like 3 times at random. That was in between listening to the soundtrack for La La Land. Because this movie, I just adored it. And I part of the reason that made me really into it and really put it at number 1 above Manchester by the Sea is it's a joyful movie. There's such an energy of positivity to it. That it's not an all happy movie. It really isn't, but it is. There's a joyful energy to it that really spoke to me and really made me into it and along for the ride. And the relationship at its core is, I thought, really well drawn, and the chemistry between Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone is freaking electric. The movie goes places that I didn't expect it to, but overall, the way that it depicts these two characters and their relationship and how their relationship is affected by their personal passions. Like, Emma Stone is an actress and Ryan Gosling is a jazz musician, and it's in the way that it depicts how their relationship grows out of their individual passions, that it's the way that it's drawn and the way that it plays out is just so beautiful and moving to me and made me just so along for the ride. It's a beautiful movie. It's kind of it's a little bit, it leads places I didn't expect it to. And I think that the much like in the same way that Whiplash, which was my 2014 movie of the year,
nice.
Much of the way that Whiplash ends in a freaking amazing, energetic musical number at the end of it, La La Land achieves something very similar. It achieves a climax at the end of it that is one of the most memorable things I saw in the movies this year. And also in its depiction of, it's got this kind of this feel to it, or this aesthetic that is, it's an ode to like classic Hollywood. It's still a modern day movie. It's almost like a period movie set in the modern day, if that makes any sense. It has this very classic Hollywood feel that is just so beautiful, and it's so visually pleasing, and I absolutely adored this movie, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. I really can't.
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, I know. Me neither. Seen it Thursday.
Nice. It is a joy to watch. I loved it, and I can't wait to see it again, and I can't wait to listen to the soundtrack more over and over and over again.
Awesome.
I loved it. So that's our top 10 list, and we've been recording for a long time, so we can kind of rapid fire the last two parts, if you guys don't mind.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Just our worst movies, and let's go with our worst movies. Do you guys want to go ahead and, Mike, what made your list for worst movies of the year?
Yeah, I'll just go through these really quick. Okay. So again, I'm not going to rank them because they are all pretty rank, if you will.
Sure.
But I guess if I had to say the worst one is Batman versus Superman. I hated that movie so much. I just hated it. I hate that that's what's going on in the DC universe. I really adore Batman, and I hate that that's the experience we get for Batman. I have expressed my disdain for Zack Snyder. I just hated Batman versus Superman. I hated it. London Has Fallen was terrible.
God, I love that movie.
Did you really?
I loved it.
Oh
it's a bad movie, but I loved it.
Okay.
I didn't love it, but I will say that I thought that the ending, toward the end when he's making his I don't know, he's riding into the place to save whatever, I don't know or care. It's like all one continuous take, and it's night, and he's in an alley, and a bunch of people it's a big gunfight going around. I liked that, but overall the movie
so
was terrible.
Yeah.
So
it sucked. The Huntsman, maybe I'm giving that too much credit for being bad. I think ultimately just forgettable. The Darkness with Kevin Bacon. Oh my God. I don't even know what happened in that movie. I don't know what that was about. Another case of should be good, but it wasn't, is X-Men Apocalypse. That was another trash, garbage movie.
Yeah.
I did unfortunately watch Adam Sandler and David Spade's The Do-Over on Netflix, tragically.
Oh no.
Ooh, I did, yeah. Well, I'm just waiting for Summer of Sandler Part 4.
That I was going to make that remark. Yeah. We're almost due for it.
We are. I mean, we could fill an episode, honestly.
No.
Think about it.
No.
Well, just think about it.
Hard pass.
We'll just think about it.
I'm going to definitely force us to do one once the first batch of all of his Netflix movies is completely out and done.
Well, I think we have to. So anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
The Do-Over, The Mechanic Resurrection. Why that's even a movie? Oh my God, you guys. Did you see that movie?
No.
I have no idea what that movie was about. Like, it started out like, okay, with a wink and a nod. Like, okay, this movie's dumb, but it knows it's dumb. Let's have some fun. And then it was not fun. It was not fun at all. I did see All Hallows Eve 2, and I put that on there because there were some really, really awful shorts on it. But I should have expected it. The first one was very mixed bag, and so overall not so bad. My last one on my list of worst movies was Masterminds.
Oh God!
Which was just a one-note joke that really, I like Zach Galifianakis, I love Kristen Wiig, and that the joke in that one died about 30 minutes in, and I just struggled through the rest of the movie.
That movie was supposed to come out like last summer, but it was supposed to come out like summer 2015, and it got shelved.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. It's funny. I had 1 year's subscription to MoviePass that could get me into any theater screening I wanted, at all. And the majority of your list, Mike, is stuff that I was like, even with MoviePass, I don't want to watch them. So that's interesting.
Wow.
Well, a lot of these are like just luck of the schedule. Like, we go on Thursday nights and see one a week, and I don't quite have the luxury of just, going on a Saturday to see something good. So London Has Fallen was the movie that was out that week, and we're like, well, what are you gonna do?
Sure. Tiny, how about your worst of list?
With as little as I saw this year, I avoided a lot of the crap.
Nice.
But I will call them dishonorable mentions. Batman vs. Superman and X-Men Apocalypse that Mike mentioned. Those two franchises deserve better. And I actually kind of enjoyed both movies, but they're not good movies. Mm-hmm. And I think I said it in our review of Batman versus Superman, but I am done defending Zack Snyder. Yeah. I will no longer. I mean, it should have happened a couple years ago, but I won't necessarily take back a lot of the good things I've said about his films. But I'm done defending him. I will no longer look forward to his work. He's done for. In my book. So those are the only two I have really for not necessarily the worst of the year, but just dishonorable mentions. I'll put it that way.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I have 10. I'll run through several of them quickly. Number 10, number 1 being the worst. 10 was The Forest, just completely forgettable horror movie with Natalie Dormer. It's just not even worth really mentioning.
Wow.
Number 9 is 999, which was a gritty, dirty cop heist movie that was off the rails, did not work for me at all. Had a fantastic cast, but none of the character motivations made sense whatsoever. It didn't track at all. It was just not good for me. Number 8, Mike, is Blair Witch.
I just can't agree with you that's one of the worst of the year.
I think that its placement on that list is because I was so let down by it.
Okay.
Because I love the Blair Witch Project, even though it does have some diminishing returns each time I revisit it. Mm-hmm. But the idea of the Lego sequel with Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett doing it, I was so primed for them to just revolutionize the found footage format.
Yeah.
And what I feel like what we got just did not do any of that. It felt so kind of rote and just kind of going through the paces of a standard found footage horror movie. Some of the technology I thought was kind of cool, like they incorporated drones. I thought that was kind of cool, but also it didn't really do much of anything. In terms of it, in terms of the actual movie. And they also implemented this idea of like these Bluetooth cameras that they put in their ears that in concept was pretty cool, but I just kind of realized like that's their cheat to make a more conventional looking found footage movie, and I thought that's kind of lazy. I will agree with you. The ending, the kind of finale of it was really really tense and really like it paid off pretty well. But leading up to that, I was just it was kind of just going through the motions for me, and I just couldn't, and I didn't care about any of the characters at all.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work for me. Yeah. Number 7 is a movie that I actually enjoyed, but for the most part, but the more I got away from it, I wasn't crazy about it. And it's just kind of, it's forgettable. It's The Magnificent Seven. Again,
really?
these are
that bad?
Yeah, I mean, it was like I had kind of positive thoughts coming out of it, but the more I thought of it, it's like the characterization didn't do anything for me. Some of the characters were completely miscast. The villain was nothing. I mean,
my big criticism of that movie, and it was a very middle of the road movie for me, was that the trailers made the movie seem like it was going to be cool. And I choose that word carefully. Like they had why remake Magnificent Seven the exact same way? I mean, the movie was not cool. It was like at worst, like dorky. It was a dorky movie.
It was.
Does that make sense? Like it was not
absolutely.
cool.
Oh yeah. It was definitely like you said, it is a very middle of the road movie, but also I love that story so much. I love it so much, and like I went after watching that, I broke out my my DVD of Seven Samurai, and I watched that for the first time in a few years, and just it's obviously you can't really compare the two, but it's just, it reminds me just how well that story can be told, and Magnificent Seven in retrospect, it seemed like it was actively avoiding the best, like any good way to tell that story. Because we got like nothing in terms of how the Magnificent Seven interacted with the actual townspeople. Like I said, the villain character was nothing. The final battle scene was pretty cool, but it was also just kind of,
it's fine.
Fine.
It was fine.
So, then number 6. Okay, number 6 is a movie that I have not been able to talk about yet on this podcast, and it was one of my more anticipated movies, but its placement on this list is not because it was one of my anticipated movies. It's because it was a pretty awful movie, and that movie is Passengers with Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt.
Yeah, I'm glad to get the heads up on that movie. And just it's one of the most frustrating movies I've seen, because it is, on paper, it is like my favorite movie. It is Jennifer Lawrence. It is Chris Pratt. It is Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt in space. It is those two in space in a story that's shrouded in mystery of them being the only two in this like colony ship that have woken up from their hibernation 90 years too early. Like, this stuff is amazing. And this movie was also like, they tried to get it made for like 10 years. And it was on the Hollywood blacklist for unproduced screenplays that were like really highly sought after. So I'm like, this movie is going to be freaking amazing. It is awful. It's the first 15 minutes are really really satisfying for a science fiction fan, because it does a really great job of world building. The tech is really cool. The design of the ship is really cool. But then it reaches a moment where it goes down a path that could have made for one of my favorite, like, it could have been a really intense and great and gratifying movie for me as a science fiction fan, but instead it squanders that to be this really formulaic adventure action movie where things come up like the plot unfolds in such a script
needing way. Like, there are things that come up out of nowhere, like, oh, now we need to go do this, and now we need to do this, and now this needs to happen. This character needs to do this, or this character needs to have this thing, and it's all because of the script needs it. It's not anything organic, and it is so frustrating. And what sucks about it is there is such an amazing thing. There's a moment in the movie that I think in a better movie could have been just a really intense and jaw-dropping action thriller set piece. It's Jennifer Lawrence is swimming in a pool on the ship when the artificial gravity goes out. So she's in 0G in the middle of just a ball of water that's floating. And like, that idea is so amazing and so cool, and it's terrifying, and then the movie just squanders it as far as a set piece is. This was such a frustrating movie, and I was so angry. I was so angry after it was over, because it was just not what it could have been. Yeah, so that's Passengers. That's number 6 on my worst of movies. But I didn't mean to go on that much of a tangent. But yeah, it was very frustrating. So next up is number 5 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Out of the Shadows. Just really didn't like it. I just flat out didn't like it. The writing was terrible, and nothing in it was for me. I couldn't connect to it. Number 4 was The Accountant. This movie was 3 movies kind of pushed together to make one movie. And in terms of, like, in doing that, dropped like several like important plot elements for each individual one. So it was just a complete mess. Like, that's how it felt it was created. I don't know if that's how it was done, but there is a character in The Accountant who is a treasury agent who there are two scenes where her investigative techniques are literally her Googling something. And it's obscene, it's terrible, it's dumb. The Accountant, and then, okay, top 3 worst movies of 2016. Number 3, Suicide Squad. Just a mess. I really didn't like it. I almost put Batman v Superman on this list, but I didn't, because I kind of felt like I don't want to have 2 DC movies, and Suicide Squad was the worst.
But it deserves it. They both deserve to be on the list. I accidentally took Suicide Squad off. It should also be on there.
They do both deserve it. I really was not a fan of Batman v Superman, but I do give it some points, because coming out of the theater, I did, like, overall, like, if you go back and listen to our review of it, I actually came away from it thinking, like, there were parts of it that were pretty fun. I was pretty okay with some parts of it, like the Batman action sequence thing toward the end. I thought that was cool.
Oh yeah, that fun 4 minutes,
right, out of 2.5 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah. But so I kind of gave it some points for that. But anyway, Suicide Squad, terrible movie. When you have a character that is a member of the Suicide Squad that pops up out of nowhere when every other character gets an introduction, that's a problem. Like, it's indicative of the entire movie that they don't know how to tell the story, and it exposed that the DC extended universe isn't a Zack Snyder problem so much as it is a DC Warner Brothers problem, because they don't know what the fuck they're doing with this universe, and I would love to see them steer it onto a better course, but I don't see that happening. Suicide Squad was terrible. And then my bottom two, essentially. Number 2 was Collateral fucking Beauty. Mike, have you seen this yet?
No, are you kidding? I avoided that like the plague.
Oh my god!
I immediately, like, looking at the trailers, I was like, "This has to be a joke."
Yeah.
This movie.
Why did you see it?
I saw it because of the backlash, honestly. Because I saw the trailer and I didn't avoid it like the plague. I thought, okay, that looks okay. That doesn't look like it's for me. It looks like a movie like that looks super hokey and super just not my thing. But I had heard the words morally reprehensible thrown around with it. And I was like, okay, well now I've got to see it. And I saw it, and yes, like the trailer depicts a movie where Will Smith is grieving the loss of his daughter and is visited by these concepts that he has been writing to, time, death, and love. Like angry letters that he's been writing to them saying like, why did you take her away from me? Her time. Why is my time or whatever? And so these concepts visit him and kind of like guide him through his grief and everything. That is not the fucking movie that this movie was. This movie was 10 times more cruel and horrible. And like this movie is offensive. Like it is offensively bad because the character, it's what the movie is truly about is that there are characters in this movie that are doing horrible things for selfish reasons at the expense of someone who is hurting at the worst part of their life. And it's morally reprehensible.
Wow.
And it was so like there were moments in the first act of this movie where I was like, I'm sitting there watching, I'm like, okay, this is whatever. And I kind of thought like, wait, is this what they're doing? And then I thought, no, this can't be what they're doing. This can't be what they're doing. And then I realized that, yeah, that's what they're fucking doing. They are going down this route that is so deplorable. Wow. That is so deplorable. And it is what makes it even more terrible is that the movie is self-aware enough to know that what it's doing is wrong. Like what the story it's depicting, like the characters who are taking part in this plot that is terrible. Like there are scenes where they say, like this is wrong. And it's not like a conversation or a debate of whether it's wrong. It's like the screenwriter was like, okay, well, we need to have them like say that they know what they're doing is wrong. Cause it's batshit insane what's going on in this movie. Let's just go ahead and have them say it so that we're safe. But it's not, cause it's, oh my God, this fucking movie. Yeah, so that's Collateral Beauty. Don't fucking see it. No one see this movie. It is horrible, and the worst part about it is that it is presented as the feel-good holiday drama that the trailers made it out to seem. So while the trailer presents this Christmas Carol-esque movie, the actual movie is this terrible, deplorable movie that is also like supposed to be a feel-good holiday drama thing. And it's terrible. I hate it. Collateral Beauty. That's number 2. And I'm so glad I finally got that off my chest. And then number 1, worst movie of the year is Dirty Grandpa. I saw it earlier in the year. Stupid comedy. Completely, I mean, it's more continuity errors than I've seen in a single movie than I saw all year, probably. And it's stupid comedy that didn't deliver on anything. There were moments that I don't hate it as strongly as Collateral Beauty, but the comedy in it didn't go anywhere for me, and I think that's a pretty egregious crime that it committed. Just that I didn't find any part of it funny, and I thought it was a waste of time. So that's Dirty Grandpa, my worst movie of the year, and fuck Collateral Beauty.
Jeez.
Yeah. Oh God damn it. Anyway, picked a hell of a week to stop with the bleep button on it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So that's our worst movies list, and then we're going to kind of wrap things up because I know we've been recording for a while. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, I got to go to bed.
Okay, real quick, movies you're looking forward to in 2017, go.
Oh, Spider-Man.
Mike.
Homecoming.
Oh, nice.
And
Awesome.
Star Wars. I mean, it's always Star Wars.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tiny?
Silence. Been in the works for 30 years. Martin Scorsese, one of my favorite filmmakers, so that's up there. Of course, The Dark Tower. Mm-hmm. It's basically my favorite thing ever.
Yes.
Star Wars, of course. Yeah, it should be a good year.
Yep. Same here. Logan, Spider-Man Homecoming, Star Wars Episode 8, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yep.
And, of course, The Dark Tower. I cannot wait. At this point, I just want to see it. It's happening. I'm just excited about that. So anyway, that does it for our 2016 in review episode. If you guys like what you heard and you want to help support the podcast, the easiest way to do that is to leave a rating and review on iTunes. Helps out a ton. And if you want to donate to the podcast, you can do that at with the donate link on obsessiveviewer.com or go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. And next week is our 200th episode. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to do favorite TV shows. Are we still going to do that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. And Mike, I assume you're not going to be able to make it for that.
Yeah, I won't be able to do that. That's 200 though. That's awesome.
I know, right?
That's awesome.
200 episodes. Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, I guess that about does it. Any parting thoughts, Mike? Where it was great having you back?
Yeah, no, not really. Other than it was fun to do this again. I need to watch more movies. I need to be more obsessed. Love you guys. Love talking to you guys. And thank you everybody for listening.
Yep. Love you too, buddy. Hope we get some more Pine Tree perfume from you.
Yeah, and, definitely. I will shoot you one on Thursday for sure.
Sweet. And congrats on all your success and everything that happened to you this year. Both of you guys.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Guys. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. So, yeah, that about does it. So, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to The Obsessive Viewer, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at ovpodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast app. The Obsessive Viewer's theme song is An Eclipse of Events and is provided by Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. You can find that and more great music from them on iTunes and like their Facebook page at facebook.com/loudlikemusic. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can email the hosts individually at Matt, Tiny, or Mike at obsessiveviewer.com or send an email to the podcast in general at podcast@obsessiveviewer.com. Check out the Obsessive Viewer blog at obsessiveviewer.com, where we post movie and TV reviews and the occasional editorial about the business of entertainment. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer and follow us on Twitter at obsessiveviewer, at obsessivetiny, and at IamMikeWhite. If you want more obsessive content in your life, check out our sister site, obsessivebooknerd.com, for book reviews, author spotlights, and a general celebration of reading. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. Again, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Be excellent to each other.